drivers.
From beautiful Lakeland, Florida, we welcome you everyone this evening to the third race of the season for the RTG 358 Modified Series, as we're here to go racing for 45 laps at the USA International Speedway. We've still got to have our qualifying sessions, our qualifying heats, to determine the starting lineup for today's event, as 19 drivers will get set to take to this dirt track. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Samuel Dyer. And Sam, I think the big story coming into this one, we're only 2 races in, but already it's been established everybody is chasing that number 9 of Ryan Stillwell.
Yeah, Stillwell, 2 races into the season, already has won those 2 races and looking like the heavy favorite to continue on from this season, but practice is showing a different story. Stillwell, middle of the pack speed-wise. We'll see how that evolves throughout the race as the track is going to be evolving as well as heat number 1 is about to get underway.
Like we're going to have 3 heats here for qualifying. Going to be 7 drivers in the first heat, 7 in the second, and looks like we will have 5 drivers in the third heat. Michael Massey is going to line up on point for the first heat alongside of Wayne McDuff III. Steve Robbins in row 2 with Tyler File. Christopher Carmen in row 3 along with Jim Black and Dave Melson, who a lot of people may recognize that name over on the RTG Enter 2003 Tally Challenge side. He's going to be in a row by himself, 7th place here in the grid. But the thing I'm noticing here, Sam, not only in this heat, but we'll see it in the upcoming 2 heats as well. A lot of names that we recognize from last season in the street stocks and the late models, but a lot of new faces as well.
Yeah, I mean, with new faces, I think it's coming with the new car that came out. I mean, this is the new big block 358 model, and these cars are a beast to handle. There's a lot of power under them, and it's allowing some drivers that really were not a fan of the street stocks to put their foot into something new. And looking at this heat number 1, I think the driver that I've got my eye on to win this heat, it's got to be Steve Robbins, fastest during practice, and probably wanting to carry that speed and get the pole position for the featured race.
You know, from what I remember from the street stocks, it was almost kind of like a brick on wheels. Drivers were not afraid to use that car as a weapon, make contact, move other drivers out of the way. Here with these 358 modifieds, we can see maybe somewhat similar to the late models where you've got the tires exposed, some of the suspension exposed. So do we see them utilizing these cars in terms of moving people out of the way, or are they a little bit more delicate?
I mean, when you're going to be like hitting somebody with your body on the side, I think it can take a little bit more beating there, but it's the front end bumping someone that is going to be the most difficult thing. You got to be careful not to be hitting someone with your front end and make sure that it is with your side if you're going to be making any type of move like that. So slide jobs going to be extremely important if you're going to be making moves, but here at the USA International Speedway, it's all about staying low in the first for these races, and then once the track evolves, the higher they'll be moving up.
Just like last season, we will see no cautions in these heat races, so if you make a mistake, you're going to have to reap the consequences of starting towards the back of the pack. As green flag is in the air, things got a little stifled up at the front, and Wayne McDuff says, thank you very much, I'll take the race lead.
Yeah, that certainly was one of the most interesting starts. It just looked like Michael Massey did not know when he wanted to take off in the back half of the field, also kind of getting jammed up as McDuff just takes off like a rocket ship. Everyone else, though, kind of just waiting and lingering, and it's going to be Jim Black who's going to be hurt the most.
Yeah, Jim Black's going to fall all the way back to 7th place. It looks like maybe 4 drivers were able to keep in touch with each other. Then it's quite a gap until you get back to the 5th place machine of Tyler File. Up at the front right now, the best battle on the track. Looks like it could be closing up in a battle for second. Michael Massey looks in the rearview mirror, and there's Steve Robbins, second in the points.
Yeah, Steve Robbins is going to be trying to get as low as possible here. That wall is on the inside. It's kind of your barrier that you're wanting to hit almost when you're hitting these corners. And here comes Robbins on the inside, but almost a little bit too much in there. He doesn't want to be sliding and getting that sideways, but this 073 certainly is quick here today.
Yeah, he just barely had his left front clip the grass on the entrance to turn 1. And I would think that with these type of cars, they're somewhat built for going a bit off-road.
Don't contact
gonna have some door banging there for a second, and more contact between the two, as now both cars, one goes up and over, the other one almost did, but comes back on all 4 wheels.
And that's going to be gifting the 22 and the 6. Both second and third is Michael Massey back on all 4 wheels, but certainly a little bit underpowered. But we're still seeing that battle for second place. More contact.
That was Christopher Carmen going around as he was in a battle for second with Tyler File. file made no contact. The 22 just looped it. All of a sudden, the driver we were talking about in 5th a couple laps ago is now up in 2nd place.
And just like that, I mean, Michael Massey went end over end, somehow is still running, was involved in that latest accident. Somehow this 45 machine still, I mean, with these, they might not look like a tank, but certainly still able to run like one is that 45 machine.
Dave Melson in the 038 now moves into the 4th position, and Jim Black, who was dead last when they went into turn 1 on the opening lap, he's now up into the 5th position, but almost 4.5 seconds up on 2nd place is Wayne McDuff III with about 2.5 laps to go. I mean, right now, it's all smooth sailing, so what are you doing if you're this one car? You may be putting aside some notes and doing some experimenting for when you get to the main event?
Yeah, this is practice. You're trying to figure out how to hit these lines perfectly and also get a sense of how the track's going to be at the start of the race for the featured race. And you got to be excited for McDuff. As long as he doesn't make a mistake, pole position is his. As coming around the final bend, going to be setting up for the white flag.
Wayne McDuff III, only one start this season, but finished inside of the top 5 in that start. It's all random draw of who's in what heat, but if you're in the first heat, you've got a shot at the pole position, and it looks like car number 1, 2 corners away from starting P1 in our main event race.
Wayne McDuff did a great job getting up front, staying up front, and never had to worry about it. Winner of Heat 1, pole position for the featured race.
Out of turn 4, 2nd place is going to be Tyler File in that 6th machine, and then here comes Michael Massey, who's, wow, if that car wasn't damaged enough, a barrel roll across the start-finish line, the front stretch, but still is going to be 3rd.
And able to land on all 4 for that 45 machine and slowly limping it around. But I think a lot of those drivers are excited to see that heat is over. But heat number 1 showing a lot of excitement, and now kind of setting the tempo of how tonight is going to be like, if that's just how Heat 1 is for those first 8 laps.
Going to be our 2nd heat with 6 drivers in it. Ethan Sprague is going to line up on point. We'll be talking a lot about Ethan when we get to the late models later on tonight, as he is battling for the championship, the points lead there. Coming into this race, however, not in the hunt right now. He had a start, I believe it was last week, but didn't go the way he planned. He comes in 23rd of 23 drivers in the point standings. He'll be alongside of Donnie Fair, another new face here in the RTG iRacing series. Rick Gibson, there's a familiar face. He'll be 3rd alongside of Todd Michael Mallory, and a driver that, or a couple of drivers that we talked about in the championship picture at the end of last season in both what was then the street stocks and the late models. Tim DeSchwart, he'll be 5th, and Ryan Stillwell, who's won the last 2 of the 358 modified races, he's going to be shotgun in this heat.
Yeah, this heat's going to be giving us a good picture of what Ryan Stillwell has, if he's going to be having a car that can fight for another win and get the 3rd in a row, or if he's going to be just going for more of a conservative finish here in heat number 2. But like we saw from the first heat, I think if you got the pole position of the heat, you feel very comfortable to be able to just pull away, as the rest of the field are just going to be battling so hard with one another.
Yeah, and it's been not only a strong start to the season, but a dominating start to the season for Ryan Stillwell. At the season opener at Lanier National Speedway, he ended up leading 33 of the laps there. That was the most. And then last week at Volusia Speedway, he led 34 of the laps in that main event. So he has led all but 2 laps this season. So it has been an absolute dominant start to the year for that 9 machine. But this is going to be a chance for him to start on the front row, but it would end up being 2nd place, as we already know that Wayne McDuff is starting from the pole position.
And the reason the pole position is so necessary is because USA International Speedway is a lot of kind of a 1-lane course for the first about 15 laps of the course before it starts to be more worn down. So that inside line, most preferred and where you want to be. Green flag out in the air for heat number 2.
Like a little bit more organized start here than what we saw in the first heat, but that outside line again gets a really good jump. Donnie Fayer, whoa! And now Gibson's going to get a piece of that. Look up there on the top side of Mallory and the yellow machine. Greg is going to almost go around. Somehow they all kept it straight going into 3.
from first back to sixth in one lap sprint. That is not the way you want to go. You want to go the other way. But right now, Ryan Stillwell all the way up to third place. And that 9 machine's looking quick as our front two gets slight contact, but they're running a little bit too high, I think, for my liking. They gotta still stay low here for another 3 more laps before the track really starts to evolve.
As Sprague dropped to the back, moving to the front is that yellow 220 of Todd Michael Mallory, making his first start of the season. He is all over the back bumper of Donnie Fair as they're behind them battling for third place. Ryan Stillwell on the top side trying to get around Tim DeSchwart.
Yeah, Tim DeSchwart got a great run as well as Gibson, and they're going to be right on that 9 machine's back bumper, but Mallory as well as the 001 up front doing a great job. And here comes that 220 who's going to be trying to make a charge on the inside here shortly, but right now a great job for our leader here, Fair.
Tim DeSchwart saw his car go up in the air a little bit there, getting down on the grass going into turn 1. He now tucks in line in 5th position behind Rick Gibson. 2 drivers at the front of the field here right now battling it out for this heat win, both making their first start of the season halfway through here as Fair and Mallory again only about a car length, maybe half a car length at some portions through the middle of the corner between these 2 machines, but that purple and white number 9 of Ryan Stillwell, he's clear into third. He might have something for the top 2.
Yeah, these are really important positions we're seeing our front 2 battling. This is possibly for 2nd and for 4th place on where you finish here. So this is very important for these drivers to make sure that they stay clean. But Fair went a little bit too low, and that angle's going to be pushing both drivers up.
And riding on board with Ryan Stillwell, look how quickly he closed up the gap, gained maybe 2 car lengths there through 1 and 2, and continuing the charge. Now, these 2 guys, Fair running the bottom and Mallory running the top, now they swap lanes as Mallory's going to go to the point. If they keep side by side and boxing Ryan Stillwell, where does he try to go to try and win this heat?
Stillwell's kind of got to wait for them to drift high, like we're seeing our 220 go up so high, and then just try to capitalize with them losing so much momentum, staying low, and trying to better launch off, but contact might be made as they're starting to drift up. Almost 3 wide action there coming out of 4.
Ryan Stillwell is there as Mallory and Fair still side by side. It was Fair who led that lap, but it's the white flag one more time around. Fair pushes up the track. Stillwell tries to stick his nose in, can't do it. Mallory still up to the top side, contact.
Fair's going to be sticking it low, but it's going to be Mallory on the outside, getting the momentum. A great move on the outside, but contact almost made, but it's going to be Mallory across the line for heat number 2.
What a great battle there to the start-finish line. As you said, contact off of turn 4. The 220 could have very well been hooked, but he's going to be able to hang on, and he will start on the outside of the front row alongside of the 1 machine of Wayne McDuff III. And now we get ready for our 3rd and final heat to determine who's going to be starting in the 3rd position. Pole spot is going to be Brian Hogue, who last week picked up 6 spots in the standings, up from 9th to 3rd. He's still 20 points out of the top position. Mitch Bombard will start to his outside. That'll be Adam Huggins and Brian Ordo in 3rd and 4th. Grant Wesley, driver that we saw go to victory lane multiple times last season. He's 5th in points, will start 5th in this heat, and Sean Kerrigan will round out the rest of this 3rd and final heat race.
Yeah, I mean, looking at like some of the stats that we've been seeing all season long, it's been Ryan Stillwell and Steve Robinson have been top in the only drivers with 2 top 5 this season, and so this is going to be a wild card heat for us, I think, to watch and see. Now, I'm interested to see how Hogue's going to do, because last season when we were watching Hogue race, he had pace at some courses, but just seemed like bad luck would strike this 14 driver. We'll see if that luck has turned around this season.
Hey, you know, a lot of people usually keep an eye towards the end of the season when the championship's on the line, but it's these races at the very beginning of the year that set up who is going to be in said championship battle. I mean, if you look at what I was just talking about with Brian Hogue, picking up 6 spots in the standings. The early portion of the season is when you can do that, pick up multiple spots in points, because the points are so close together. When the season continues on and the points start getting spread out, that's when it's difficult to even pick up 1 or 2 positions. So this race right here, even tonight, while it may seem inconsequential to spectators, it actually, a lot could be on the line up in the future of this series for drivers and their championship hopes.
Drivers having a little bit of fun, some contact between our front 3 as we're entering turn number 3, about to let these drivers loose. Another thing to watch out for, this track is so different from when it was for Heat 1. We're 16 laps into a run here. This track, we're going to be seeing a lot more drivers trying to stick it really low or even try to work that outside line here for this third heat.
Green flag ready to come out here. 8 more laps to determine the starting lineup for tonight's main event at USA International, and some contact early on as Brian Hogue and Brian Ordo not giving each other a whole heck of a lot of room going into turn 1. Hogue is going to take the top spot down the back straightaway.
Huggins did a great job trying to stay close to our front two, but this time entering corner number 3, they're all going to be jacked up from second on back.
Boy, I'm not really sure. There was a lane down there for Huggins, but he made it work as he got chopped off by Brian Ordo. The two made a little contact, but fortunately not enough contact to send one or both around.
Yeah, and Ordo, I mean, this 71 machine certainly is going to be trying a little lot, but you got to be careful when you're cutting down on someone like that, because that can ruin your race. And still, Huggins is not liking the fact that Ordo is blocking him and trying to get this 71 out of the way.
And it's backing them up too as well. Some contact back there for the 4th position. Sean Kerrigan and Grant Wesley. Grant trying the bottom there now to get a run on Adam Huggins for 3rd place. He is going to clear the 15 of Kerrigan into the 4th spot, but now trying to crack into the podium. Drives it back to the inside of Huggins. Almost slides up into his door.
Yeah, and that's the type of racing you're going to be seeing a lot here with the way that this track's going to evolve for the featured race, is drivers just really throwing it into the inside and trying to find as much moisture down there, because you're going to have to get closer and closer to that inside wall to find as much grip as possible. But it's going to be Hogue pulling away almost up to a second gap.
Yeah, we saw in the first heat Wayne McDuff III pull away, but that was due to contact that happened behind him. For Brian Hogue, he's pulling away because these guys are racing tooth and nail from 2nd place on back.
Yeah, and also you're seeing Hogue run a slightly different line than what the drivers behind him are, as we're seeing Grant Wesley really staying low to that inside wall, trying to make the passes made, while Hogue's kind of running that middle to higher line here through these corners.
We talked about USA International being a 1-lane racetrack. We've not really seen anybody here venture up to the top side, and these drivers here in 3rd heat, as I said, it's all random draw. They're going out here on a surface that's already been run by 2 other heats, so I'm surprised we're not seeing any drivers venture up, try and find some extra grip in an upper lane.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a lot of knowledge that these drivers in the third heat are grabbing. They're understanding, hey, when we're getting closer to that halfway marker, where do I need to place my car or to find the most speed? Is it going to be on the low side, or is it going to be on the higher? As Huggins almost absolutely taking out Grant Wesley, but able to both stay running straight.
Yeah, still close proximity. 2nd back to 5th place, Sean Kerrigan. This all going on over a full 2nd behind Brian Hogue, who's about to come around and see the white flag one more time around for that 14 machine. And this could be a huge points day for Brian Hogue if he's able to hold this track position because of the situation and points. Grant Wesley with a nice slide job got by Brian Ordo for the 2nd spot on this final lap.
Ordo's going to be fighting back right to the inside, but he stalls out in the center of the corner, giving Grant Wesley that 2nd place position, but a great run there by Hogue.
So Grant's going to be starting in 6th because of making the pass for 2nd in this 3rd heat race, but Brian Hogue, he will be starting P3 for the main event. And that is going to, I believe, set us up. I think we do have an LCQ here to set up what's going to be the back half of the field.
Yeah, 7 drivers. All of them will be moving on to the featured race. But like you said, it's time to rack them up where they're going to be starting the back half of the field. And really the driver that's looking very good, Kerrigan, looking strong, as well as Steve Robin. I believe those are the 2 drivers that I have as favorites to win this this consolation race, but certainly it's going to be an interesting race to see how the back half of the field's going to be running.
Yeah, Steve Robbins was in the 1st heat race and got involved in that early incident, was really never able to bounce back from it after his car ended up upside down over in the turn 3 area. So he's going to be having to do it from last year in this heat, 7th place. I honestly think that the pressure is on him even as early as this consolation race because he's 2nd in the points. Ryan Stillwell has started this season on fire. I mean, Steve Robbins has to make sure he's going to at least be up in the same zip code as that 9 machine.
Yeah, especially with how large this field is for tonight. You want to get as much track position as possible so you don't have to fight through traffic all race long and possibly be caught up in an incident. is for this race, 12 laps, and I believe that the track is still the same track that the drivers on the heat race were dealing with. So still a very worn down course that these drivers are going to have to deal with, and we're going to be really seeing how the drivers are going to have to be working, and if that outside lane is the more preferred lane later on in this race.
So do you think this gives a slight advantage perhaps to Steve Robbins, even though he's not going to be getting the benefit of really good starting track position, he is going to have a bit of further knowledge in this race over guys like Ryan Stillwell and Brian Hogue, not only in terms of cutting his way through traffic, but doing it on an older racing surface.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly are loving this knowledge to be taken in, and it's going to be something for you to really think about, and also kind of a little bit of information. If these are the drivers that are going to be trying to pass while they're lap traffic, another way to get some knowledge from that point of view. As green flag up in the air, 12 laps to figure out who's going to be lined up in the back half of the field for the featured race.
Oh, already a car in the wall back there. I think that might have been the 22 of Christopher Graham. He's able to keep it together, though, but it stacked him up behind him. I think Mitch Bombard was the one that had to bail out of the throttle, give him the opportunity to gather it back up.
Drivers up front, it's going to be Rick Gibson just pulling away, already up to a 1.5 second lead, just because of how much everyone got stacked up. Kerrigan all the way up to second place as Jim Black going to be holding on third, but here comes Steve Robin, who started back in 7th, already up to 4th.
Yes, indeed, and he's now going to go for 3rd place on Jim Black. It's a nice run through the center of the corner, and it's going to clear off of turn 2. Now sets his sights on Sean Kerrigan. I'm just not certain at this point in time if he's going to have enough time and enough race car to get up there to Rick Gibson. So right now I think the best he'll be able to do is get up to that 2nd place, which he's hunting down right now. Almost got into the back of Sean Kerrigan there into turn 2.
He did run right into the 15, got him absolutely out of shape, pushing him off the course, and now Steve Robin, he's going to be putting down some pretty late lap times, but he's got to run down our leader by 2.3 seconds. And there's enough time to do it if you're running fast enough, but that is a tall order to do for the 073.
Yeah, right now looking like he's about maybe 500 slower than Rick Gibson. And if you're going to close up, as you said, nearly a 2.5 second gap, you're going to have to do it by leaps and bounds with only 9 laps remaining. If you're running equal lap times to Rick Gibson, there's no chance you're going to be able to reel him in before the conclusion of this race. Still some good battling behind them inside of the top 5. That's where we find Chris Carmen, Ethan Sprague. They're trying to reel in Jim Black, Mitch Bombard in the vicinity as well.
Yeah, well, I'm watching, Sprague as well as Carmen. They are really battling hard here, and Jim Black about to be ran down by the 22 machine. And it just looks like, Kerrigan is in his own zip code, all by his lonesome, has a second of Steve Robbins a second ahead of him, and then Jim Black about a second behind him. So this 15 driver just has to hit his marks and feel comfortable, but it's that battle for 5th place that's really the closest action here on the racetrack.
Yeah, it's so interesting too, because this is going to be the same venue that the drivers will be running the late model race at later on tonight. And looking at Ethan Sprague, he's second in points for the late model series, but he's struggling here tonight with these 358 modifieds. We saw him drop to the back in his heat race. He's stuck back in 6th place here in this consolation race. It just goes to show that some drivers, there's a certain type of car that they're comfortable with, and there's other type of cars that they're not comfortable with. Doesn't matter if it's the same track.
Yeah, it really is a comfort zone. Oh no, contact! Carmen absolutely shunted there, but able to hold on. But as Spark is really wanting to go, but yeah, the big block 358 modifieds certainly are a beast to handle, and they're still kind of new. They've been in iRacing for a couple of months now, and with the late models, those things have been in iRacing for quite a while, so drivers have now gotten a feeling for it, a finesse for those cars, and so they're able to really whip it around these corners, but still, a learning curve is still here for these big blocks.
Still that battle for 5th place on. More contact as Sprague gets into the back of Carmen. Mitch Bombard's got a good view of this, and now he actually is going to start entering into this battle as we are now at 3 laps to go. The gap is cut down a bit from Rick Gibson back to Steve Robbins. Robbins been able to cut it down by 0.8, but he's running out of time.
Yeah, and it's really, right now, Gibson and Robin running very similar lap times, so that gap really not being cut in, but it's that battle still for 5th place. the drivers are just getting loose out of the corner and really just struggling to find that grip on how to get the launch on these straightaways.
Mitch Bombard trying to take advantage of these two battling with each other, trying to sneak by the both of them. He goes to the inside of Ethan Sprague for 6th, not able to get the run off the corner. Sprague's going to have a couple more shots here at this 22 as he swings it into turn 3.
Yeah, going to be trying the outside lane, trying to get the momentum out of the corner, and Carmen's doing well, but you're feeling like that 0-17 is trying to set up a crossover move, but it's going to be the 22 kind of stalling out in the middle of 1 and 2, which is now giving it an opening. Might try an inside pass, but just not close enough yet. You really have to throw it in there and hope for the best.
Rick Gibson's going to cross the start-finish line and win this consolation race. We'll drop back to this battle for 5th. Sprague tried to get to the back bumper, couldn't do it, so Carmen will hold him off. It'll be Gibson, Robbins, Kerrigan, Black, and Carmen the top 5, with Ethan Sprague and Mitch Bombard bringing up the tail end of the field. And now these drivers, they'll head out on track for about 3 minutes of warm-up, get acquainted back with the moistened surface, as it will be a new track surface for these drivers when the green flag takes place in this main event, and gives us the opportunity to be able to kind of have a couple of takeaways from that heat race and what we're looking for in this 45-lap main event.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really questioning on how these drivers are going to be able to adapt, really. Like I said, the first about 15 to 20 laps, it's going to be a lot of trying to get as low as you can on these corners and try to find that moisture on the inside. And then later on, as we get to the halfway marker, it's going to be a lot more splitting up. Who's going to find that speed on the outside first and really start making their moves forward? And those that still feel comfortable on the inside, trying to get a little bit closer to the grass, closer to that inside wall, that's where we're going to be seeing a lot of the changes for these drivers throughout the race.
And I know that we ended up having a lot of our fast drivers all intermingled through different portions of the field and in those respective heat races, but what I noticed that in 2 of the heat races and the consolation race, it was a runaway. Granted, in the first heat race, a lot of drivers made contact, so McDuff was able to pull away there, but we saw Brian Hogue be able to pull away in the 3rd heat race. We were able to see in this consolation race, we were able to see that Gibson was able to pull away. The only real battling we saw at the end was between 3 drivers in that 2nd heat. So if we end up going into a long green flag run here and don't see a lot of cautions in this 45 lapper, I'm almost wondering if we're going to see the same thing. One driver, based on track position, pulling away from the rest of the field.
Yeah, and also wondering if we do get that long green flag run, on how are the drivers going to be able to adapt with the lap traffic. Like you said, there was a lot of battling with the drivers around 5th place for that last heat, and that it could be a battle that our leaders could come up to and have to try to avoid it and get around. That's going to be really tricky, especially with how narrow this track feels, even though there's a ton of space for drivers to go 3 wide around here. Where you want to place your car, though, it's really narrow where you want to find yourself.
Now, all these drivers knew coming into this race that they were all going to be starting in the main event, so probably a little bit more aggressive in the heat races than they will be here in the main event. But they only have one fast repair at their disposal, and if there is that possibility that we end up having the field get spread out and run a majority of this race under green flag conditions, with what you said, with this basically being a one-groove racetrack, do we see a sense of desperation for drivers at the initial start of this race to pick up as many spots as possible when everyone's all wadded up?
Yeah, I mean, look at what happened on Heat 1. We saw some of our front runners making so much contact, flipping at the start just because they were trying to gain as much time there at the start. And that's exactly what I'm expecting to see here for our first probably 5 to 10 laps of just absolutely battling and beating, and probably a lot of cautions be popping up. And then later on, once we get later in the race, the more green flag runs we're going to be seeing.
One thing I just noticed there at the conclusion of this warm-up was a number of drivers trying a slightly higher line, putting that right rear up into that dark area of the dirt, trying to see if there's any grip up there. So maybe some experimentation to see if there is a second lane to be used later on in this race.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really expecting later on, once we get to about 30 laps into this run, for that outside groove to be useful and really utilized. But here for the first about 20 laps, certainly the inside lane is where you want to be putting your car and trying to search for as much speed and grip, and make sure you're entering these corners so that you're not completely sideways, but certainly sliding enough to get around the corners fast enough.
So Wayne McDuff is going to be the pole sitter for this race. He will start alongside of Todd Michael Mallory. Brian Hogue will be third. Those were the 3 heat winners. Fourth will be Tyler File. Donnie Fair and Grant Wesley will be in row 3. Michael Massey and Ryan Stillwell, the current points leader, they're in row 4. Brian Ordo and Dave Melson, they will make up the completion of the top 10. Tim DeSchwart will be 11th. Adam Huggins in 12th. And the rest of the drivers where they finished in the consolation race, Rick Gibson, the winner of that consolation race, 13th. Steve Robbins, 14th. Sean Kerrigan, 15th. Jim Black in 16th. And Chris Carmen, 17th. Ethan Sprague in 18th. And Mitch Bombard will be rolling off from the 19th position, the biggest field that the 358 Modified Series has had so far this season.
Yeah, no, I think I'm really nervous to see how these first about 3 laps are going to go. I mean, we saw the carnage that happened in our first heat. I'm expecting similar here for these first 3 laps. The real question is who's going to be using up their fast repair early in this race, because if you use your fast repair early, I feel like you're in such a hole where you have to race not as aggressive, but really cautious and trying to make sure your machine is still standing by the end of this race.
Well, I mean, are we able to use Michael Massey's incident in the first heat? Maybe it's a bit of a template for that. I mean, he was almost up and over at one point, made a lot of contact at the time with Steve Robbins, was able to continue on, and even flipped across the start-finish line, coming to the checkered flag, and was able to drive on.
That is such an odd picture for us to be holding on to, but certainly is something for us to keep in mind for drivers if a caution comes out. But race 3 of the season is underway. 45 laps to figure out who's going to get this thing won as we are green.
Wayne McDuff III going to try and have the advantage into the corner. We saw in a couple of restarts, or initial starts, I should say, in the heat races that the outside line got the advantage, but he will clear for the top position, Will McDuff, leaving second place Mallory, third place File, and then there's 3 wide for fourth behind them.
McDuff went way too low. He's going to be losing speed. Here comes Mallory, but it's going to be the battling back around 5th place, and they are really bumping off one another. And the points leader, Ryan Stillwell, is right in the middle of that. Grant Wesley way on the top side in the 88. On the inside line is Donnie Fayer, the green and white machine. He's trying to get the inside of Tyler File for third. Just seeing those drivers that were trying to make that outside line work and just trying to find certain speed. They knew it was going to be jam-packed. Those drivers searching for the inside speed, and the drivers on the outside just trying to carry their momentum. And you're seeing the outside line a little bit more preferred, but on the inside, Fair, huge run for that 0-0-1. Looking further back in the field around the 10th position, 3 wide. Around the outside was Adam Huggins. He'll now lead Michael Massey and Steve Robbins side by side. They were 3 wide for a moment with Tim DeSchwart in the 49. Now things settle out a little bit in the mid-pack. Back up to the front, though. Battle again is going to be for that second position. Fair on the bottom. On the top side is Mallory. There was almost a huge collision with Grant Wesley on the front stretch, getting into the wall, getting involved with Hogue.
Gracious.
They're
Now
still
we
real
almost
bumping.
lost
They're not going to be giving an inch to anyone here. They've already noticed it's into the wall. It's going to be Fair. Donnie Fair going to get the outside wall off of turn 4, drops back possibly outside of the top 5. He's now dropped to 5th, about to lose that to Tyler File, who can't quite get the power down off of turn 2. Yeah, File just went a little bit too low, started rushing the grass and slowing him down. You get pretty low, but you don't want to be absolutely racing in the grass, or you'll be losing your momentum out of the corner, but still battling for third place. Stillwell, but not to worry about. Here comes Grant Wesley on the inside. And you've got up here a battle for the lead that keeps happening. It looks like McDuff in the 1, he keeps diving down to the inside, close to corner entry, then swings it back up, and he leaves the door open on the top side for Mallory, who's just not quite yet been able to get the momentum to stick his car on that top line. And McDuff is searching for speed, and just saw there in the first heat how much he's able to pull away. Here, though, during this featured race, 7 laps into this thing and trying to just stay high, not to give anyone an opening, because really, the longer the race goes on, the more the outside lane is going to be more preferred. But a huge dive there from Grant Wesley, who's going to move up just slightly, almost, and it's still well. Tried to pull the slide job for third place, didn't work, but he is able to stick alongside of that 9 machine. Now drives it deep again into turn 1. Can he clear Stillwell? He will. Stillwell crosses him over, though. Contact, puts Wesley into the wall. Manages to keep it straight. We're still green. We're still green, and also Fair almost able to make the pass there, but Brian Hogue, he's now up to 5th place. certainly is about to be passed. That's a small more contact made with the drivers around fifth place.
That's going to be Tyler File in the mix of that one with Brian Hogue. Adam Huggins behind him. He's got Rick Gibson to the inside. Gibson won the consolation
Caution
race.
to the back.
Mitch Bombard and several others. Jim Black, there's another car up ahead that flipped upside down. I think that was the 017 of Ethan Sprague.
I think Sprague could have been the catalyst of this caution coming out. Got into the outside wall on the straightaway. Kerrigan had nowhere to go, and caution, our first caution today, around lap 9.
Incredible it actually took that long with all the slipping and sliding and contact that we saw. We'll follow back here on the replay. The 017 of Ethan Sprague, and he was closing up to the back of Christopher Carmen for what would have been, I believe, a battle around the 15th position, and that was rather odd. It's almost like the car just lost speed all of a sudden, and Sean Kerrigan flew into the back of him.
Yeah, I mean, the main issue is the fact that the 017 got into that outside wall, and that was what really bogged him down, and after being in the wall, that's what turned him into a break. It looked like his right tire might have gotten into the wall and was not releasing him, bringing out this caution.
Yeah, we'll look at another camera angle here because that's exactly what happened to him. See if we can get one around the left side of his machine. And it's maybe a far out view, but it will give an idea of what you were describing. There's the initial contact, and yet just never was able to turn the thing left and back off the wall. Kerrigan nowhere to go. Jim Black and Mitch Bombard come flying in as well. And you talked about the possibility of drivers having to use that fast repair early on. Well, 017 was not able to drive away from the scene of the accident. Not only had to call a tow, but I have a feeling more than likely it's going to have to use that fast repair early.
Looked like there might have been an issue as Brian Ordo, as well as Grant Wesley, had to pull it into the pits for both of those drivers and use their fast repairs. So some of our favorites up front, surprising to see them have to use their fast repair. I know there was slight contact being made. I know Grant Wesley got into the wall at one point. Might be the reason why, as the drivers are stacking up and getting ready to go green.
Yeah, talked about the exposed suspension for these drivers, especially on that right side. Those right side tires stick out a lot further than the left side tires do from the flat body of these machines. So with Grant going up there and pancaking the right side of his car into the outside wall, maybe it was a necessity that he had to come down and utilize that fast repair, as Wayne McDuff gets us back underway now on lap 10. And as you saw there, we did not count the caution laps for these drivers. So it is 45 green flag laps that they will run here tonight.
Yeah, we're quick yellow coming out for these drivers, and it looks like it's Tim DeShort in that 49 machine that's going to bring this second caution out.
DeShort, who was in the championship battle in both the street stocks and late models last season, going to be bringing out the second yellow of the day. And it looked like just from when we dropped back to him, he might have been the only one that was involved in this incident. We'll see if there was contact. Oh no, there were more drivers involved.
Yeah,
Some correction on that.
It was DeShort trying to slow down and not run into Robbins, and then behind them, just carnage of drivers being piled into that one. As Grant Wesley on the outside luckily was able to get out of that, but Kerrigan, Messelson, as well as Carmen involved in this one.
Dave Melson making his first start of the season and suffers his first barrel roll.
Bordeaux, who just used a fast repair, also ran through that and got some front end damage.
We can spot that. Oh yeah, right there you saw with the left front as he got into the back of the spun out 49 of DeShort.
And that's what I'm talking about with the getting and using your fast repair so early, is that you're now just a sitting duck for incidences like that. And Ordo now has to make this hard decision. Does he come in and try to get repairs done manually, or just stay out there and stick with what he's got?
Yeah, I mean, if you come down pit road and try and get damage repaired manually, you can't spend that long on pit road, because it doesn't take long even under pacing for these drivers to make a lap around USA International. A couple of drivers had already lost a lap with pitting under caution before. Mitch Bombard was one of those. I believe, well, actually, I think he's still on pit road. I thought that he had come back out onto the racetrack, but he has spent 4 minutes on pit road, as has Ethan Sprague, so it looks like they could very well be out of the hunt for this victory. But yeah, I mean, I almost wonder, because the engine for these cars is in the front of the machine. You can see it sticking out there. And with that contact to the left front, you got to wonder how much of that impacted the engine compartment.
Yeah, that's just going to be something we're going to have to keep our eye on, as the 71 machine's going to be starting the back half of the field. But Sprague, as well as Bombard, still in pit road trying to get repairs done, which is telling to me that they did not click the fast repair button, and they are manually repairing their machine, so they must be out of this race.
Tough break for both of those drivers, as looks like Dave Melson, even despite the flip, he was able to come down, get the fast repair done, still on the lead lap. Wayne McDuff leads them into turn 1. Ryan Stillwell trying to swing around the outside of Mallory in the 220. Can't do it. He's going to try and cut down in front of Donnie Bayer. Now he crosses over Mallory going into 3 and 4.
A lot of slicing and dicing going on, but Huggins is going to be now put on the high side and was working in the back half of the field, but caution out. Ordo seems to be the driver involved in this one.
Brian Ordo in the 71 machine. If he didn't have damage from the earlier incident, looks like he may have gotten up into the outside wall this time. We'll go back and see what happened over in turn 3.
It also looks like Timothy DeSchwart also involved. 71, just a little bit too low, touching the grass, spinning it around.
Ordo running low. Well, that's surprising too, because I saw a couple of drivers, not only in the heat races, but also in the main event, namely Rick Gibson in that 38 machine. Was way down low like that, and looked like he was able to hook the bottom pretty well. So I don't know if that little area of grass down there, if that's a bit slick for that left front tire or not.
I think it's just the fact that when he got onto the gas and started to take off, just because his tire was there, it really just whipped the back end around on him, and that's probably the biggest issue. I mean, I've raced on the grass a little bit here, dirt track racing, and the grass can sometimes be useful for yourself. But most of the time, you do not want to be touching the grass at all, or if it's going to be slowing you down or just making you way too slick, like we saw there.
Well, Brian Ordo, with that added damage, forced to come down pit road. He has completed his pit stop. He's going to come back on the racetrack. We'll see if he's going to still be on the lead lap or not. I think he fell a lap down here under caution. Nope, they're still showing him on the lead lap, so he'll still be out there. So now for Brian Ordo, I think basically the goal now is to hope other drivers run into some issues and try to capitalize on their mistakes. Brian last week gained 2 spots in points, moving from 15th up to 13th, but it's certainly not been the start to the season he's been looking for.
Yeah, it really hasn't, and I think that's going to be something that we continue to watch out for, and how the drivers are going to be getting some redemption later on in the season.
Look at his last 2 starts. He has finished in 18th and 15th to start off the season, still looking for a top 10 finish. And this is a guy in Brian Ordo that we saw finish up inside the top 10 consistently last year, whether it was with the street stocks or the late model series. Looks like we're going to single file restarts now, Sam.
Yep, after 10 laps, we go back to single file racing. It's going to be McDuff trying to pull away. This one machine's been doing a great job on these restarts. It's after we get past turn 1 and 2 that we start to see those battling going on. Stillwell not able to make the crossover move work. But here comes Mallory coming down the backstretch.
Further on behind them, Michael Massey and Adam Huggins, they were side by side for the 8th position, as Stillwell not able to complete the pass there on Mallory. Now tucks in line in 3rd. We'll drop back to that battle still going on for 8th place. That now is going to be Huggins under fire from Gibson.
Rick Gibson doing a great job. Started back in that 13th position, able to make the moves forward, as well as Huggins started in 12th place, up here in 7th, battling for 7th place, and his drivers did a great job. Redemption is a little bit of contact in the back half of the field. That's going to be Steve Robbins being pushed around back here for 10th place. Robbins
back here, Grant Wesley back here as well. Sean Kerrigan, a little bit of a roadblock for Grant Wesley, who not only gets into the back of the 15, then crosses low and takes Steve Robbins 3 wide. That's a battle for 10th.
Yeah, watching these racing that's going on, Steve Robbins is just really breathing the wall that time, but He's either not turning enough or turning too much. He hasn't found that sweet spot yet, as at 0.73, he's just having issues here today.
And you saw that he made contact with the back of Sean Kerrigan. It was wheel to wheel, and it almost shot the 0.73's front end up into the air. So that was a great save by Steve Robbins, but boy, the guy that's running second in points right now, trying to reel in Ryan Stillwell, he's got his hands full not only with the race car, but all the traffic around him.
Oh, that battle for third place. Oh, it's going to be fun. There he goes around for the 14 machine.
Caution's going to come out. Oh, no!
Wesley involved, as well as Kerrigan.
And Wesley's upside down and is going to have to teleport to pit road.
He
A
already
battle
used the
for
fast
third
repair.
goes wrong.
The 88 already used the fast repair. He's going to have to tow and manually repair this car.
Grant Wesley, who was a multi-time winner in the street stocks last season before they moved over here to the 358 modifieds, another driver, much like we were just talking about with Brian Ordo, how this has not been the start to the year that he's been looking for. A lot of drivers that we're used to seeing up towards the front week after week. It has not been the way they've wanted to start the season out. As we look again at that contact with Hogue over there in turn one and just nowhere to go. If you're in that outside line, you can't change from the outside to the inside line on a dime.
No, and we're starting to get to that halfway marker that I was talking about, where the outside line is going to be the more preferred lane as the race progresses on. So that's why we're starting to see a lot more drivers getting on to the high side and being a lot more jam-packed and not able to make any type of moves. As you saw there, Grant Wesley as well as Kerrigan, they were stuck in the lane that they picked, entering that corner, and contact was made.
We're riding on board here with the 88 of Grant Wesley, and even more so than just being in the line you're committed to, you don't really see the wreck is taking place until you get into that corner, because all he could see at that point was the back end of Michael Massey's machine.
Yeah, and it's such a struggle out here right now for those drivers. There's a lot of machines still trying to get repairs done. Sprague's still trying to get repairs done, but it's the 10 machine able to get repairs done and also gifted a waiver round, so trying to get those lap back for the 10 machine.
Mitch Bombard is going to now be 4 laps down to the race leaders. Grant Wesley still sits on pit road. Looks like the 14 of Brian Hogue, he came down pit lane and utilized his fast repair. Thing of it is, though, Sam, as we mentioned, there's no caution laps that are getting counted here tonight. We've run 16 laps so far under the green flag. There's still a long ways to go, and much like the case of Grant Wesley, I'm looking at some of these guys like Dave Melson and Brian Hogue that we know have used their fast repair already. They could be in trouble. They're not only back in traffic, but they could fall into the same category as Grant Wesley, get more damage that they would have to repair manually.
Yeah, it certainly is now has to be getting into their heads, because if you've already been involved in an incident, most likely because you're dropped back, you're going to be involved in another one. I mean, it seems like if you were caught up in one incident, one lap, the next caution, you're most likely going to not be the cause, but certainly involved. This green flag back in the air, that battle for second place, still heated, Stillwell to the inside.
Ryan Stillwell has really tried to get the advantage on Mallory on these last couple of restarts, but Mallory has been up to the task. Melson in the 038. And that's a driver we know has already used a fast repair.
Kerrigan and Hogue, just like I said, if you're in the back half of the field, you use a fast repair, you get caught up in another one. Hogue on the back half of that caution.
Back and see what happened here. 5th caution of the night at
Really
USA
started
International.
in front of these guys. I really started with Carmen spinning the tires and getting everyone jumbled up. It might even start to be further in front of those drivers.
Was that the 86 of Jim Black that also might have spun the tires there? Oh no, he was spinning. He was spinning to avoid.
Was that Michael Massey that might have spun his tires that initiated that? I think so. And then everyone else behind him just accordion affected after that.
Drop back all the way to when the green flag came out for that restart, and yeah, you're exactly right. I think that was Massey and Fayer. They both kind of spun their tires. There you see the reaction of the 22 of Carmen. 86 of Black gets down into the wall. And then there you see the follow-up wreck with Kerrigan, as well as Dave Melson and Brian Hogue. I think Brian Ordo got a little piece of that as well on the front stretch.
Looking back, I think Ordo was actually able to... No, Ordo ran right into, I think that was Jim Black initially, and then Black got caught up with more drivers I think behind him. It was just carnage from the front stretch once we went green.
There you see Melson going into the corner. He gets hooked by Kerrigan. There's where Ho gets his piece. And going by all of that was the 10 of Mitch Bombard, who may end up getting another lap back here with this caution. But the initial wreck on the front straightaway involved about 3 or 4 drivers. Add another 3 or 4 with that follow-up incident into turn 1.
I'm looking at how these restarts are going, and it's surprising to see that the drivers are spinning their tires, but at the same time, these are the big block modifieds. These things have a lot of speed in them, a lot of horsepower, and it is throwing these drivers all over the place when they're trying to keep up with the drivers in front of them. It's going to happen. We're going to be seeing some drivers spinning their tires, a lot of machines. Now trying to get that damage repair. Grant Wesley still trying to get repairs done. The 038 involved, still in the pits, as well as the 017.
We have not yet reached the halfway portion of this race, but we are drawing close to it as it's going to be McDuff getting us back underway. And is the battle for second going to be on again? You bet it is. Ryan Stillwell back to the inside of Mallory. Not as good a restart this time, though. Wasn't able to draw even going through 1 and 2.
Yeah, the issue is that first starting see Stillwell is not going to have the advantage as much as he did at the start of the race. There's that middle groove that he's really throwing that car into. It's just there's not enough grip. The moisture has gone away, but certainly not the carnage. There's going to be drivers into the wall there, but still running.
Rick Gibson now is going to get to the inside of Ryan Stillwell. Further back, couple of drivers way up on the top side. One of them's Donnie Thayer. The other one is Tim File. And don't look now, but a driver that's kind of peeking his way into the top 10. He's in 8th place. That's second in points. That's 73 of Steve Robbins. He's trying to get up here to Ryan Stillwell.
Yeah, but Robbins is in a very precarious situation. He's got Huggins, File, and Fair, and all 3 of those machines have made contact with the wall or one another here in the last couple of laps. And now it's going to be Robbins on the inside trying to get past them. But on the outside, that's going to be Rick Gibson with the 38 machine with a head of steam. I think he's found that speed on the outside, but hits the wall.
Yeah, that's the first time we've really seen Rick Gibson change up his line to the outside. Most of this race, as well as back in the consolation heat that he won, he was hooking it on the bottom. But I think this is now, as you said, we're getting to the point where everybody is trying to search for a little bit more grip. More and more drivers trying the higher line.
Yeah, we're at that lap 20, a little bit past that lap 20 marker. So now the outside is looking quick, and the inside is where you're going to be finding a lot of stragglers trying to make some slide job moves. But if you want consistent speed, you got to run on the outside. That's where Rick Gibson is, already up to second place, trying to run down our leader, less than a half a second away.
And again, very close to that outside wall off of turn 2, but he has found something. He is cleared for second. He is now about maybe a car length and a half behind McDuff. McDuff is giving up the top side, ran low there into turn 4. So if Gibson wants the outside line, he's being offered it right now.
Caution in the back, it's in the middle. It was going to be Stillwell Fair all the way contact as those drivers are battling for 4th place.
Ryan Stillwell, first incident he's been involved in tonight. Trying to see, it's kind of hard to tell with these cars where the damage really is sustained, just based on the way these cars are built. I don't see a whole lot of damage on that machine, so he may have dodged a bullet here, may not have to come down and utilize a fast repair, but you know, he's running right now around the, towards the back around the 14th, 15th position, so maybe you want to come down and use that fast repair now that you've lost all that track position?
Yeah, I mean, we're past the halfway marker for these drivers, so now if you feel comfortable that you're going to be doing well, maybe go for it, but I think it's still risky. If you try to use a fast repair at this point, you're going to be in the back half of the field. I think it's do one stint, see what it's like, and if we stay green, I mean, I think you got to risk it. But it's going to be fair. Just ducking it in. Seeing that Stillwell did not come in, but this time it's going to be the 001 coming in and trying to use his fast repair. I think he recognized that he was low on power as Stillwell was on top of that machine during the caution, and I think that damage might be too much to handle.
I'll tell you what, though, Ryan Stillwell needs to be very thankful that Fair got on the brakes when he did, because if he had stayed in the throttle, that 9 machine was about to be hooked over onto its roof and would have more than likely had to have called a tow to pit road, which would have lost him a few laps. So very fortunate that Donnie Fair did not flip him over. And Fair coming to pit road, utilizing that fast repair there. We're going to have to see if he'll be able to get up here because Donnie Fair, we saw how aggressive he was in his heat race. He's been up in the top 5 most of this main event, but now he's going to be back there in traffic.
Yeah, and like we've seen, the pattern has been if you use fast repair, most likely you're going to be involved in that next wreck, and hopefully it's not too much damage, but it is going to be a wild one for these drivers to deal with. But up front, I mean, McDuff's got to recognize Gibson found the speed on the high side, but I think McDuff might be thinking, hey, let that 38 be on the high side. Find that speed, utilize the speed now, and let him absolutely ruin that machine. Gibson has been extremely close to that wall, brushing it a couple of times, and he's got to be careful not to hit the wall and just clobber it as much as it seems like he has been.
Wayne McDuff has led the entirety of this race so far, but has yet to experiment with that outside line. So if that inside line goes away, he's going to be at a disadvantage from other drivers behind him. We know that Gibson's tried up there, File has tried up there, Adam Huggins has been way up there. Those guys are up inside the top 5 right now.
And it's going to be Gibson going even lower than what McDuff was, trying to get closer to the one machine, possibly a slide job, but now here's the time, 2, 3, and 4. Who's going to stay high? It's going to be Gibson staying there. And with all the momentum, there's that 38 machine.
He's going to get alongside the right rear quarter panel coming off the corner, and he will be alongside heading into turn 1. We'll see if he can follow that up into 1 and 2.
Mallory as well as File going to be back in 3rd place, battling with Huggins, and they're going to be trying to utilize that same high line to catch up to our front 2, but I think Gibson found the speed a little bit too early compared to the rest of the field because he's pulling away and no one else can catch him.
Gibson again very wide off of 4. He's going to clear for the top position though when they cross the start-finish line. So Gibson is the first driver not named McDuff that leads a lap in the main event tonight.
McDuff's going to be trying to do a crossover move here, at least try to dive it down, but also he's going to find that searching moment. He's moved up, now trying to find that speed, but Gibson, he's so close to the outside wall. One mistake could throw him right into that wall and possibly find him flipping.
Rick Gibson missed the first 2 races of the season, so he's making his debut here tonight in the new season of the 358 Modifieds for RTG, and now he is out in front. Big gap from 5th place back to a battle for 6th between Steve Robbins and Michael Massey.
Yeah, Steve Robbins, he's been trying so hard to battle this way. He's been caught up in a couple of instances, has a little slightly damaged machine, but still running well. Has not utilized the fast repair yet. We'll see if he wants to later on. Rick Gibson, he was searching to see if that inside would work, but it looks like once he moved up to the high side, wasn't as much speed as he thought there was going to be continuing on.
Steve Robbins right now, as you mentioned, with damage, but he hasn't used his fast repair yet. He's in 6th. The driver that he's trying to cut down the points lead of.
Back in black. And others.
That Mitch Bombard back there, I think, as well in the 10 machine.
I think it all started with Hogue, though, in the 14, as he got out of corner number 2, and it went bad from there. Yeah, he was caught up in a hornet's nest of drivers in front of him. It looks like Carmen might have been the initial start of what got the 14 in a lot of trouble there on the front stretch. I mean, on the back stretch, excuse me.
It's looking like the 10 machine as well of Mitch Bombard was either unable to refire the car back up or was having to wait until the field got by before he actually got his car turned around and continued on. And you saw there that contact between the 22 and the 14 that triggered that wreck on the back straightaway.
Yeah, I mean, it was the 22 and the 14 that got jam-packed, and then I think there might have been maybe net code, a little bit of contact from Bordeaux to Hogue that got the 14 spinning, and then other drivers followed suit behind him.
Jim Black's been involved in quite a few incidents here tonight. This, I believe, might be his 3rd, if not 4th incident that he's been in. As we're going to take a look at the shot he takes into the back of the 14 of Brian Hogue, and I almost wonder if this might be Hogue's race over. We know he's a driver that's already utilized a fast repair, and that was a lot of impact not only to the back end after Jim Black hit him, but also a lot of damage to the front end of his race car.
I'm riding on board with Jim Black, and it just seemed like he just had a late reaction of realizing what was going on in front of him, because he just never let off until it was kind of past the point of no return, and he ran into the 14. A very odd caution to come out and be involved in for Jim Black there.
First restart tonight that we are not going to see Wayne McDuff get us underway. Rick Gibson was able to take the lead. Caution comes out, so he will be the control car when we go back green. McDuff will be second, Mallory third, File in fourth, and Adam Huggins there in fifth. But I was going to say before that caution came out, we know that Steve Robbins and Ryan Stillwell both have been involved in incidents tonight and have not yet utilized their faster pairs. Robbins right now is in sixth, Ryan Stillwell just a few spots behind him in the ninth position.
Yeah, and we'll wait and see how these drivers want to react with those faster pairs. But I think Kerrigan's probably the most surprising one, has not come in after all the incidences that 15 has been involved in. A free flag back in the air. Rick Gibson ducking it extremely low, but McDuff blinking, so you got to wait and see where the one car is going to be popping up.
Yeah, it was a bit scary, wasn't it? The one machine, first time tonight we've seen the disappearing card trick, and that was the second place machine. Battle is going to be back here for a spot inside the top five. Steve Robbins on the bottom, trying to get by Adam Huggins in the 16, and then also just up ahead, trying to see if he can also get Tyler File in the sixth machine.
And then behind them, Ryan Stillwell, who was battling strong with the top five for a while there before being involved in that incident. He's up to seventh place, able to get by Tim DeShort.
He will complete the pass, looks like, by the time they get over to turn three. DeShort tries to cross him back over. Robbins was able to make the pass on Huggins, but Huggins with the crossover now to the inside of the 073. And there you see, not too far away from each other, there is Robbins, there is Stillwell. They're going to maybe be alongside each other going through 1 and 2.
That's going to be Carmen in the 22 being involved in this one.
Carmen bringing out the 8th caution of the night as we were closing in on 10 laps to go, but looks like we're going to be waiting for that. It's going to be about 15 laps to go when we eventually do go back green flag racing for another restart. Let's see what happened to the 22 machine.
Yeah, it was really coming out of corner number 2 and out of corner number 4, excuse me, and the loose sensation and just, this has been the trouble for the 22 all race long. It's just trying to correct how loose this 22 machine has been and struggle on the straightaway. Then being caught up is the 001 Donnie Fair that just had nowhere to go with that machine.
That was an attempt to save a wrecked race car really there from turn 4 all the way to the start-finish line for Christopher Carmen. And Fair was trying to give him the space to gather it back up, but there's only so much space you can give before you're giving up spots yourself. So Fair had to really make a decision on whether he was going to stay in the throttle and try and see if he could pass the 22 as he was fishtailing, or try and give up some track position to allow him to gather it back up. Unfortunately, though, just looked like Carmen wasn't able to gather it back up at all.
Maybe some issues here for some of the drivers under pacing, but drivers running into one another. Jim Black as well as Carmen running into one another under pacing after looked like Kerrigan getting a little bit loose for the 15 machine and just messing with everyone else in the field.
So we will be going back green with 15 laps to go officially, working 8 cautions here tonight. And, you know, last season when we covered the street stocks in the late models, we were able to have a comparison between the two cars. The street stocks were a lot more durable, but they were somewhat slower. The late models carried a lot more speed, but they were much more delicate. What are some of the points of difference between these 358 modifieds and the late models? We'll see them run later on tonight that we'll be able to kind of use as talking points, just in terms of the racing we're going to expect to see the difference of this race and the upcoming one.
Well, you're seeing here tonight, I mean, you're seeing a lot more aggressive bumping compared to what we're going to be seeing with the late models. Late models is a lot more finesse driving, trying to pass each other with a lot more slide jobs and not just brutally bumping a car out of the way. With the noses of these machines, you do have that metal bar that is protecting the engine, but also utilizing a tool to try to make a move. These drivers, a year later on, it's going to be a lot more slide jobs trying to make some passes as Rick Gibson underway. And also, Seth, we got to be aware, time, this race could be based off of time and not how many laps are being ran.
That's a great point as well. Wasn't noticing that is now Steve Robbins almost lost it. Contacting himself and Adam Huggins. He kept it straight. Huggins is now against the inside wall in the backstretch.
Hogue also was going to be involved with that 16 machine, but the driver's able to keep it straight. We stay green as up front. It's going to be Rick Gibson pulling away, but those drivers all have to be wondering, how the heck did we survive and stay straight?
There was more beating and banging going on back there as well. Jim Black and Adam Huggins, they were making some contact. Still contact. That's Jim Black and I think Mitch Bombard bouncing off of each other. Again, they all keep it straight and keep it green.
Yeah, and there's just a lot of hard racing that's going on. You got Michael Massey and well as Tim DeShort battling for 6th place. And then you've also got side-by-side racing going on for 9th place, Porto and Steve Robbins. But, I mean, based off of that, I mean, everyone else is pretty much trying to stay single filed out. And pretty spaced out at the moment. For our leaders, though, Rick Gibson has found the speed and is not looking back as he's pulling away, almost over a second over 2nd place.
Ryan Stillwell and Donnie Fayer, we saw the two of them get together in what was then a battle for 4th contact there between Massey and Fayer, and they're going to ride way up the track into turns 1 and 2, but both the 9 and the 001 have done a great job of recovering. Stillwell back up in the top 5 and 5th. Fayer with that slide move on Massey's just moved into 7th.
I mean, File as well as Merrily, I mean, as well as the 220, they have been just battling with one another this whole entire race. They've not really given an inch, and they're still battling strong for 3rd place, about to be 2nd place.
Mallory in that 220, File in that 6, McDuff the 3rd in the 1. Mallory and File making their first starts of the season. How impressive have they been here tonight?
It's going to be Michael Massey and others. They're all piling up onto one another back here around 10th place.
Massey was in a battle, as we saw earlier, with, I believe it was the 00 of Donnie Fayer, as well as the 49 of Tim DeShort. I almost wonder if maybe some contact was made with one of those two drivers.
Looks like the 71 of Porto might have been that machine that made the contact with the 45 machine. Other one, oh, Kerrigan, nowhere to go. Grant Wesley, nowhere to go, and Huggins somehow sliding and not making contact with Grant Wesley. An amazing save by the 16 machine.
Michael Massey, we're going to see the incident that he had here is, oh man, you know, we've seen so far tonight drivers making contact with the back end of the car ahead of them. Sometimes they're able to gather it back up, but when you try and go for a lane there, which practically is the wall, and it's not there, you know, it's very difficult for that car that gets hit from behind to be able to keep it straight.
Yeah, and, you know, you're trying your best to save it, but once you get that help, there's no coming back for a lot of these drivers. Just for an update on time, these drivers are within 10 minutes of finishing out this race based off of time. If we do get to a time set where the time runs out, the drivers will have one more lap to finish out this race, and we'll continue to give updates on what the time is looking like. But for right now, Seth, I mean, we're running down on laps, 10 laps to go. When we go green, 9 laps to go for these drivers. Do you think we're going to be finishing on time or based off of laps at this point?
Honestly, if we keep this pace up, it's going to be time. If we're able to run green to the end, there's no doubt that they can make it under that time limit and finish this race lap-wise, but I don't know. It's typical any track we go to. We start getting down to 15 laps to go, 10 laps to go, 5 laps to go. The aggressiveness and the urgency, it keeps ramping up, and moves that you might not necessarily make back on lap 20, you're more than willing to make when you get down to the closing stages.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be thinking Steve Robin as well as Brian Hogue. They're behind where Ryan Stillwell is now, and those drivers trying to gain as many positions as possible. All the other ones, all the drivers that were close points-wise, they're really not close and of being up front. So really, it's going to be Robin and Hogue back in 10th and 11th place. How are they going to be aggressive here for the final about 9 laps of this race?
Well, we are about to find out here, as it's going to be 9 laps to go. Gibson to the point. And let's not forget, Gibson started this race back in the field, 13th place. He started there because he didn't make it into the top positions of the heat races, won the consolation race. And he's been able to fight his way through the field up to the front and might be able to pull off his first win of the season because of that.
Ryan Stillwell up to 5th place and trying to gain more, but he's stuck behind the 6 and the 220, but really not finding any space. Brian Hogue has been an amazing move on his part, though. He was back in 11th place. He's now up to 6th.
Now it's going to be McDuff trying to see if he can reel in Rick Gibson. But again, he's trying that inside line, and it's just not gaining him any ground. He ran that inside line most of this race, and in all probability, that's what lost him the race lead, maybe the race win. You can see even there that Mallory on the top side is closing the gap up in that battle for second.
Yeah, the issue is the center of the corner, that middle lane, that you lose the moisture immediately, and then you got to go a little bit lower or a little bit higher to find the moisture where you have the most grip and carry your speed. And really, this one machine of McDuff just not finding it and really needing some help, but certainly sending it and hoping for the best. But it's Mallory, Farrell, as well as Gibson. They're carrying their momentum, and that's why they're making their moves forward, and for Gibson, pulling away.
Tyler File trying to put the pressure on Mallory, and that might be because he's got the pressure behind him. Ryan Stillwell there, and now that it looks like the two might have gotten up into the wall just the least little bit. Look how these cars are bouncing down the straightaways here as well, so no wonder they've got their hands full coming off of turns 2 and 4, trying to keep it off the wall.
Yeah, File rushing the wall through the corner, and it's just the straightaway is way more bumpier than backstretch. It's just because of how much more the bumps are. It's been worn down. This course has been worn down time after time, but they continue to bump like crazy. And with how much they're bumping, they've also got to be concerned on how aggressive they can be at making some moves. And if they make a move with the wrong bump, certainly going to be hurting themselves in the battle for third place. Continues to rage on as more bumps for the drivers as we're coming up to 3 laps to go.
Whoa, File drove it really deep there. May have gotten to the back of Mallory, and he almost had Stillwell into the back of him in turn. That's now bringing Donnie Fayer into this mix. So it may be a 4-man fight for that third position as we're at 2.5 to go.
This is the issue with dirt track racing, is the slide job has to be utilized. You can't run the same lane as the car in front of you if you want to make the pass, unless you're going to be trying to drive through them. But if you're all on the inside, but there he goes. There goes the two on the inside, trying to do the slide job move. As Merrill's going to go straight to the middle and trying to do the slide job. And Will, great crossover move there by the 220.
Crosses him back there as the two was not able to keep the momentum up. Oh man, you saw the back end of that car jump in the air with those bumps. That killed his momentum and put Stillwell into the back of him. Stillwell's going to move up a spot into 4th. Now he's got Donnie Fayer looking to the inside of him.
It's the battle for both points that's really carrying on. Fair's going to be going all the way to the inside, coming up into Stillwell, but able to drop back with white flag in the air. Rick Gibson, no one in sight. This 38 machine's been dominant and now going to be defending the inside.
3 wide for 4th place. Stillwell, Fayer, and File. This going on behind the top 3. Gibson in the lead, McDuff in 2nd, Mallory in 3rd. Looks like that's how they're going to cross the start-finish line for the checkers. Rick Gibson snaps Ryan Stillwell's winless streak to 2. He'll get his first win of the season here tonight at USA International.
Side by side across the line, Ryan Stillwell somehow, no, he'll lose it, down to 5th place as Farrell. They were both side by side, able to make that pass made for the 0-0-1. Wow.
49 1/1000ths was that battle to the start-finish line for the 4th position. And even though Ryan Stillwell tonight is not able to go a perfect 3 for 3 to start the season off, the good news for him is, points-wise, the driver that was closest behind him, which was 16 points back, that being the 073 of Steve Robbins, is going to finish in 10th. So even though he didn't win, Ryan Stillwell will continue to gain points on the rest of his competition.
Storylines really for our top 3. I mean, for Todd, it was staying close with the 6 machine and really no space between those two all race long. For the 1 of Wayne, it was all about staying low, trying to keep that lead and just not able to. And for Rick Gibson, that 38 machine, just staying high and carrying that momentum and getting the lead, and no one else was able to keep up with them.
This is going to be something that we're going to have to carry over for a storyline into the late model race, because McDuff led the first half of this race, well, the first 20 laps of this race from the pole. Rick Gibson worked his way from 13th to win this race. So it's almost kind of the question, is track position important or isn't it? Because we ended up having our top 2 finishers be drivers that started in completely different areas of the starting grid.
It also is a little bit of luck. I mean, Rick Gibson had to go through all that traffic while also avoiding a lot of the carnage that happened in our first 9 to later on in the race. So yes, he was able to cut his way through traffic, but certainly it wasn't a safe travel, able to avoid all the carnage. And you got to think of some of the drivers that were caught up and how to use fast repairs. What would they have done if they were able to stay up front with that track position instead of having to cut their way through later on in the race?
Well, let's see if we can get some interviews with our top 3 finishers, and it may give us a bit of an idea of their ideas of what they're going to expect for the late model race later on here tonight. And let's kick things off with the driver of the 220 finishing 3rd place here tonight, Todd Michael Mallory.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey Todd, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us? Now we'll give it another go here. Hey Todd, it's the boys up here in the FRM booth. You got us? All right, looks like we're having some difficulty here getting a hold of our third place
User was
finishers.
moved
So
out of
let's
your
actually
channel.
move to our second place finisher, who started on point but finished his second place here tonight. And that's going to be Wayne McDuff III.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Wayne, it's Sam and Seth up here in the FRN studio. You got us?
Yeah, you got me?
We do indeed. Man, first off, congratulations on your second place run here tonight. You did it from the front. Started on the pole position after winning your heat, but we saw that 38 was up there on the top and was coming with a head of steam. Did you see that there and think about maybe going up and taking that lane away, or was your car just more comfortable on the bottom?
At the time, I was still a little more comfortable on the bottom, and I was watching the relative time, and I seen him coming, and I was like, oh boy, I don't know where he is. And then when I saw him go by on the outside, I figured, well, I better move up and try that. So I moved up and started running up there a little bit, and I'm not really comfortable with the high line at a lot of tracks. This one, not bad. And 3 and 4, 1 and 2, I really can't get it figured out, so I'd rather try to run low there. But he was definitely moving.
Yeah, I mean, Wayne, we saw how the track was evolving here tonight. What can you take from the race here with big blocks and into the late models?
I'm actually not going to make the late model race, but I had a great time running the small block modified tonight. It's been a blast, and I really like running with these guys. I ran my first race ever with them last week at Volusia, and it was fantastic. And I just really look forward to staying with them and keep going with them.
Yeah, he finished third in his debut last week at Volusia, and he finished the second place here tonight. Congratulations, Wayne. We're going to give you the opportunity here now for some thank you, sponsors, and shout-outs.
I want to thank the guys that put the league on, first off, and then I want to thank you guys up in the booth. Great show and everything. I can't wait to watch it. I'm going to thank Giovanni's of Queensbury, Snap-on Tools by Ron Schulz, Wendy's of Johnstown, Watertown, and Queensbury, Fox Racing Shocks. And most of all, I want to thank my wife for really allowing me to put a lot of time into my racing and really try to improve my my racing with the big block and small block modified.
Well, that's Wayne McDuff III. He's going to finish top 5 for the second straight week here in the RTG 358 Modified Series. Congratulations there, Wayne. We look forward to seeing what you're going to be able to bring to the table next week when you guys head to Knoxville.
Thank you very much, guys.
User was moved out of your
All
channel.
right, looks like we do have our third place finisher, Todd Mallory, on standby, so let's talk with him now.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Todd, it's Sam and Seth up here in the FRN studios. You got us?
I think you can hear me now, no?
We can indeed, Todd. Well, congratulations on a great run here tonight. Third place in what was your season debut, and man, you were fast out there. We saw you be one of the first drivers to actually migrate up to that top side and make it work. What little bit more do you think you needed to be able to get up there to be able to battle with the 1 and the 38 to take this checkered flag in your debut race?
Well, I think the problem I was having was I was running through those bumps and I was having a hard time getting the car set up for the corner. If I tried to avoid the bumps on the straightaway, my entry was all wrong, so I more or less was just letting the car drive me through those bumps.
Yeah, Todd, I mean, this race, you certainly had a battle all race long. You were with the 6 almost all race. How was it always having a driver right on your back end all race long?
Well, it was tough because you're concentrating on what was going on in front of you. And I knew there was someone right behind me, and you're trying to keep your line as good as you can, hitting those bumps, as I said earlier. But, yeah, I owe it to a lot of the other guys for, they had to be good racers to be around you when you have bumps like that. So I appreciate the good racing the other guys did.
Well, Todd, congratulations here. Third place run in your debut here tonight in the RTG 358 Modified Series. We're now going to give the opportunity to shout out some people, do some thank yous, and do some sponsors.
Well, I like to thank my main and primary sponsors, Merritt Barbershop here in St. Catharines. It's opportunities like this where I get a photo op where my hair is all nicely groomed where that really comes in. Thank you very much.
That is Todd Michael Mallory. He finishes third place here tonight in his debut race under the lights at USA International. Once again, congratulations, Todd.
Thank you, sir.
User was moved out of
And
your
down to
channel.
victory lane we go. Let's talk with Rick Gibson, his first checkered flag of the season.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Rick, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yeah, I got you, boys.
Man, I mean, you were able to capture a checkered flag earlier on. You won that consolation race, but it started you back in 13th. Man, you had a lot of work to do and a lot of traffic to get through to get up to the front. What was it like from the cockpit of the 38 doing just that?
Oh, it was pretty hectic. I mean, I was kind of worried, didn't have the greatest of heats, and starting up front of caution or consolation, kind of ran away with it. But I don't know, I was pretty optimistic going in there. I figured I'd run pretty decent, but it was actually a lot of fun. A lot of the guys were really racing clean, and it looked like a good show.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the consolation race, how much of that race helped you to carry that over to the featured race later on in this run?
Towards the end there, I was kind of searching around, trying to figure out some different lines, see how the track was going to kind of play out. It seemed like the high side was still going to be there with the bottom slicking off pretty well there throughout like the heats and everything like that. So it just gave me a little bit more time to get some practice in these things and try and bring it up.
Well, Rick, congratulations. It was a lot of fun watching you work your way through the field, and it looked like you were in an entirely different groove when you jumped up to the outside and were able to swing around for the lead. Never looked back. First start of the season, first checker flag of the season. We're going to now turn the microphone over to you for some thank you, sponsors, and shout outs.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Terry, Grant, and Brian, and everybody at RTG for putting this on, and you guys coming out and broadcasting it for them. They're a great bunch of guys, really, really well liked, and even everybody who ran with us tonight, really good group of guys. I guess other than that, Hard Esports, Gary Peck, and Ronald Piles, and everybody else who just who just comes out and runs and has fun.
Well, that's Rick Gibson. He's celebrating tonight in Victory Lane at USA International Raceway. Congratulations, Rick. Go enjoy your win, and we look forward to seeing if maybe you can double down here tonight in the late miles in mere moments.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. We'll give it the good college boy try coming up.
User was moved out of your channel.
And so these drivers celebrating their good finishes, but their work isn't done. These drivers still have another 45 laps, this time with the dirt late model. It's a car that we're a little bit more familiar with here in this series, Sam.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, they were able to really use the front bumpers here for the Dirt 35, the 357, 58s, excuse me, modified. So they're using the bumpers here for this first race, but for the late models, it's going to be a lot more of slide jobs and trying to make sure you do not wreck your back spoiler, as well as making sure you don't ruin your front bumper.
It's going to be a good one. We're going to start getting things set up and head over to that session as we get ready to prepare for the third race of the season for Season 5 of the RTG Dirt Late Model Series. That'll be coming up in mere moments, so don't go anywhere. FRN's coverage here tonight of RTG continues on at USA International in just a moment. Practice just finishing up here for the late models as they get ready to take to USA International for their third race of the season of Season 5. Seth Cole and Samuel Dyer back here with you folks as we're getting set for another 45 laps of racing, and a lot of hard racing that we saw with those 358 modified, Sam, and now we're getting set with somewhat faster and lower downforce machines here.
Yeah, we're getting really set up for very different racing than what we just saw with those 358s. This time, we're with the longer, kind of a little bit more fragile dirt cars that are faster that we're going to be seeing. So, excited to see how the drivers are going to be reacting here. Just very similar to what we saw with the 358s. The first about 10 laps, drivers going to be searching for the inside, staying there. It's going to be more of a one-groove track. Then after about 9 laps, expecting the cars to really search and try to find that speed, and whoever finds that outside lane speed first, like we saw with Rick Gibson, most likely they're going to be the driver that wins this race here for the featured race. But for Heat 1, this is an interesting group that we've got here with us.
It is. It definitely is an interesting group because just about all of the drivers that are in this group are a lot of guys that we saw up inside of the top 5 and ladder top 10 in our running order for the 358 modifieds. Jim Black actually was supposed to start on point. Looks like he may be dropping to the rear of the field, so that's actually going to move up. Although, hold on, are we doing an inverted field here? Dave Melson's dropping back here as well.
I think this was purposely for both those drivers to ask for EOLs to start in the back of the pack.
Right.
So that's why they're starting back there, which is now going to be changing up the field on where they're going to be placing themselves, because all those drivers that were a row behind, now they're going to move up another row.
That's going to put Ethan Sprague on point. That's second in points, by the way, Ethan Sprague. We saw him struggle here tonight with the 358, so we'll see how he does here tonight with the late model machines. He's got Rick Gibson, a winner from the previous race tonight, to his outside. Adam Huggins and Sean Kerrigan, they'll be in row 2. Michael Massey, Steve Robbins, they'll move up to row 3. And then Jim Black and Dave Melson, who were supposed to be our front row, they're actually going to be back in the 4th and final row. And it will only be 2 heats for this one. It looks like we got 15 drivers that are scheduled to take the green flag in tonight's main event.
Yeah, and so with the 2 heats, we're not going to be seeing really the track evolve too much for these drivers. I think Heat 1, expecting a lot of drivers trying to find that inside, or we're going to be finding a lot of speed. But this is something we noticed during warm-ups for these drivers, was that the bumps are not as aggressive. These cars seem a lot more stable than what the 358s were. And Space Truck is off. Green flag out in the air as the drivers are taking off for Heat number 1.
8 laps of racing. All 8 laps will run under the green flag regardless of incidents that take place. And again, a lot of these drivers getting the luck of the draw, because these 8 drivers randomly put in this first heat, they're getting to battle for what will eventually be the pole position for the main event.
Yeah, they're battling for who would win this if we get the pole, and then whoever finishes in second will be placed in 4th place. So really, these are important positions to be placing yourself. Sprague going to be drifting high, and really the goal is to find the speed early. This is great knowledge of when the track is at its primest at the start. Where can you put yourself? There's a lot of grip everywhere, but finding that true speed is so important for these drivers. But our front 3 really pulling away. It's 4th on back that are really struggling to find any type of speed to stay up front.
Now, Ryan Stillwell came into tonight not only leading in the 358 modified standings, but also leading here in the late model standings. I saw some sparks fly up. I think maybe the right rear of Ethan Sprague might have made contact with the outside wall. Stillwell, however, has not been to victory lane in the late models this season, though. Our 2 previous winners, our winner from Lanier, Scott Schroyer, and our winner last week from Volusia, Martin Karch, are not in the field tonight. So we're guaranteed a 3rd different winner here in the 5th season of the late models.
Yeah, and really watching our front 2, it's so interesting to see because they're both finding the apex of the corner at the same time. So they're both getting great runs exiting out of the corner, but it's that outside that's getting a much really straighter and better takeoff. And it's just interesting to see how these drivers both are hitting the same apex, but it's really out of 4 where you're seeing the outside line work the best, and it's out of 1 where the inside is at its best. And that's going to be something that's going to be probably translating to our race, featured race later on. This is some great racing up front, but it's bringing in Huggins, who might be thinking about throwing it 3 wide here if he's got a shot as the 49 into the wall, and now going to be losing all that momentum.
Just carried it way too high in the entry of turn 1. That's going to put Gibson out to the point. Now Huggins trying to go for second place. Also brought Steve Robbins, the 073, into the vicinity as well. And he's way down in that area that you were saying when we were during that intermission, Sam, that they're going to have to run with that kind of shovel-like nose right down against that inside wall.
Yeah, and it backfired for the 073 into the outside wall for Steve Robin, and now it's just a 3-horse battle. Who's going to be getting up front and trying to get the pole position of this race? As we're going to the white flag, there's a car on the inside. It's going to be Jim Black. Actually, excuse me, that is going to be the 038 that is low and out of the way.
Fortunately, Dave Melson did not come up in front of the race leaders, allowing them to battle here on this final lap, but it's about half a car length between Gibson back to Ethan Sprague and Rick Gibson, who ended up winning the 358 modified race just moments ago. He's going to start on point for the late model race. He'll be on the pole, winning heat number 1.
Great run by the 38 machine, was able to stay strong on the inside, and that's the risk that you have to go with if you're running on the outside. The potential of hitting the wall is so much greater than the drivers that run in the middle or the inside group, because you've got the outside to just, force the car up a little bit more to try to gain some space off the wall. But for everyone else, struggle if you're close to the wall. But heat 1 out of the way, Rick Gibson looking very strong. And I got to give it credit to Sprague that was a quick 017, but just the consistency just wasn't there for that driver.
Well, the gap between Ethan Sprague, second in the points, and the points leader coming into tonight, that being Ryan Stillwell, was 7 points. We know that there are points that can be gained on where you qualify for the main event. So with the fact that he finished in second place, talking about Sprague, now the ball is in the court of the driver of the number 9, Stillwell, who's going to be in this second heat to see what he's going to be able to do to either counter or try to better what we saw Sprague do in the first heat.
Yeah, the top 3 in the heats get bonus points here. So if you finish in the top 3, you are getting points for yourself. Grant Wesley going to be leading the charge here for the pole position of heat number 2. And then you got Ordo, Hogues, and Spangler, who is having his debut of the night for not being here earlier tonight, but showing off that 10 machine here in the late models.
Mitch Bombard, Ryan Stillwell, and Tim DeSchwart going to round out this heat. And it's kind of interesting because I'm going to throw out a couple of statistics of USA International. We've got the statistics going back to Season 3 for the Dirt Late Model Series. Back in Season 3, they end up coming to USA International twice, but that was with the limited Dirt Late Models. Grant Wesley, he was the winner of both of those, and he starts on point here for this heat. Last season, they ran USA for their season opener, and that was the only time they went there. Guess who won that race? Rick Gibson, the guy who won the 358 modified race earlier tonight, and is starting for the pole position here for the late model race. And they did run the pro late models last season, the same late models that they're running this season. So we'll see if Rick Gibson can maybe double down here at USA in 2 seasons in a row.
Yeah, I think Rick Gibson has to be the heavy favorite after winning the 358s, and then here also winning the Heat 1, the late models. But I think that Grant Wesley has a pretty good shot in the 88 machine, just because of later in the race we start to see that outside line becoming the more preferred lane to be in, and we know the 88 is very strong on the outside. Will Grant Wesley be able to translate that as the pace truck pulls off? Drivers are waiting. Great flag up in the air for heat number 2.
Yeah, Grant Wesley certainly not wanting to remember what happened moments ago, not the finish he was looking for in the 358s race after he got involved in a couple of wrecks and finished multiple laps down, and now he's getting all used up. He's got Ordo to the outside, Hogue on the inside. He was in the middle of a Brian sandwich.
Yeah, I mean, Ordo right there was just trying to force the issue, kind of using Grant Wesley as a buffer to keep himself straight and able to pull away now as the 71, but it's the 88 and the 14 battling strong for second place. But here's the thing, the late models compared to the 358s, they get so much more looser and are a lot more sideways, which slows you down in the middle of the corners, and that's where we're seeing a lot of these drivers losing their speed right in the center, in the middle of these corners, where if you're able to get a better run, you can find yourself running straight through another driver.
And when we would talk to drivers last season that finished well in the street stock race and asked them about their strategy coming over into the late models, what was the one thing they always told us? Keep that rear spoiler intact, because that is your downforce going into the corner. A couple of drivers have already scraped the outside wall. Mitch Bombard knocked down the fence over in turn 3. Looked like Patrick Spangler got up into the wall that last time around off of turn 2. So some drivers having a little bit of difficulty keeping those rear spoilers intact. Oh my goodness, that was Stillwell and Ordo nearly getting together.
Yeah, Ordo just full sent it and just ran right into the 9. Has finally just backed out for the 71 machine and really not going to be putting any other effort out there. But the battle for the lead. Hogue on the inside, trying to get past the 88, not able to, into the outside wall. We'll see if that affects the 14 moving forward.
You know, it's interesting because the thing we were talking about on the straightaways for the modifieds was them bouncing. Here for the late models, they're sliding back and forth. So instead of going up and down vertically, they're going back and forth horizontally.
Yeah, and also another driver we're going to be watching out, and that's the driver in 4th place, Tim DeShort. Did a great job last season, both in the street stocks and the late models. Can this translate as he's seen a great run through the enter of corner number 1, exit at it 2, right there on the quarter panel of the 9.
He's going to try and get alongside, couldn't quite get the momentum off that corner, now drives it deep again. I think Brian Hogue's noticing that 49 run on the inside line. He goes down there to try and stop his advances. The gap, though, is now opened up. Grant Wesley's got about 2.5 car lengths back to this second place battle, and he's also got 2 laps to go.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's in a kind of a limbo stage of either you have to start your entry in the middle of the corner, and it's either you send it extremely low, close to the grass or the wall through 3 and 4, or you drift a little bit higher and almost in that 3rd lane that you're going to be running through these corners. It seems like most of the field's going up a little high through the corners, and that's helping out really Grant Wesley because that 88 machine just seems so much more comfortable on the outside compared to the inside.
Well, we saw the jump that Brian Ordo was able to get on the outside line of the front row. That is where Grant Wesley will be starting the main event as he's going to win the second heat. It's going to be close coming down 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Hogue's going to get it, Stillwell 3rd, and DeShort in 4th place. As it was going to be interesting to see if it was going to be 2nd or 3rd under contest at the line. I think they all were all straight and all single file coming across the line there. But Grant Wesley, he and Rick Gibson, the 2 former late model winners here at USA, how perfect is it that the 2 of them are going to be the ones to lead us to green?
Yeah, it's before we get to that featured race, though, we do have the B main here, the consolation race to figure out what our back 7, where their placement's going to be. And starting up front, it's going to be Michael Massey, and we saw Rick Gibson have a great run in the consolation race for the 358s. This is some information to be gained for some of these drivers, and also just some more knowledge to be taken in. And Michael Massey, his 45 machine, just not the luck and not really the race I think he wanted back in the 358s, but certainly has a chance to rebound here in the late models.
Early on in the season, so of course the points are going to be a lot closer here, our 3rd race of the season. And over in the 358 modifieds, we were talking about the gap that Ryan Stillwell had back to then 2nd in the points, Steve Robbins. It was 16 points. Well, that is the gap from 1st back to 9th in the points here for this series. Stillwell 7 points over Sprague, 8 over Scott Monksgaard, who is not in the field here tonight. Patrick Spangler 8 points back. He's in this consolation heat, is Spangler. Grant Wesley 8 points back. There's a 3-way tie for 3rd. 9 points back in a tie for 6th is Steve Robbins and Scott Schroyer. Schroyer not in the field here tonight, our winner in the season opener. Brian Hogue is 12 points back in 8th, and Michael Massey, who's starting on point here for this consolation race, is 16 points back in 9th. There's only 17 points separating the top 10 where you find Tim DeShort. So very close still a lot of opportunity for tonight here at USA International for some movers and shakers inside the top 10 in points.
I mean, Seth, I got a question for you. Based off of the drivers that are racing here tonight and drivers that have raced throughout the season, are there any newcomers for this race here tonight?
The only driver that I believe is a newcomer that we're seeing here based off of last season would be the 038 of Dave Melson. Everybody else, I believe, also Ethan Sprague, rather I should include. We do know Dave Melson from the Enter 2003 side, but as I said back in the 358s, the first time we've seen him over here in the RTG iRacing side. And then, of course, Ethan Sprague was making his debut in both this series and the 358s this year. We hadn't even seen him near the end of last season. So those are the 2 drivers that it's the first time we've seen them in the RTG late models.
It's going to be interesting to see how these drivers are going to be reacting, because we saw during the last season how the drivers were able to really hold on and battle each other pretty strong. But it seemed like the late models, there were a lot more cautions that popped up, and we'll see once the feature race comes along. I think the fast repairs are going to be something way more important for these drivers and how they're going to be reacting with some of the new drivers that are here in the late models. Green flag out in the air here for the consolation race. 12 laps to go for these drivers to see who's going to be finishing, who's going to be starting first of the last 7 drivers.
Michael Massey is going to try and get the inside line going, but boy, that car looks really out of shape on that inside line, really loose. And Patrick Spangler, even though it may have been the longer way around the racetrack, probably the more stable, he's going to go to the point.
Yeah, you got to remember the consolation race is the track evolving even more from where it was in the heat race. So that middle lane and also the inside going to be a lot more worn down, and that means you're going to get a lot looser, and you got to be careful of how much wheel you're putting into these corners, and you're already seeing it. Spangler pulling away, but Michael Massey, he's within a little bit over a half a second. Really, the hard racing is back for 4th place.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, a lot of drivers had some difficulty going into that first corner. Mitch Bombard, he was almost losing it. Dave Melson was having an issue. Jim Black was having an issue. So a lot of drivers slipping and sliding around, having difficulty with their cars underneath them. I mean, look how sideways that 8 of Mitch Bombard was off of turn 2.
Yeah, Bombard's going to be struggling here, and I think this is going to be something to be seen throughout the race of, if some of our front runners, if they make contact, have to utilize fast repair, these are going to be the drivers they're going to be racing around. And if they're already having issues, and Bombard completely sideways 90 degrees, and finally able to get it straightened out, but that's the issue these drivers are dealing with. Once you get into the dry, slick area of the course, your car just wants to snap on you like we saw the 8 do, and it's going to continue to do so as the race goes on. You're going to have to try to find that grip, find the moisture, as that is this place that you will be able to find your car not completely kicking out, but certainly able to slide around the corners, carrying that momentum.
Watching the battle here for 3rd place. That is the closest one on track. Sean Kerrigan has the spot right now. Brian Ordo wants to take it away, running about maybe a half groove lower than Sean Kerrigan. Got a nice exit that time off of turn 4. Gap between those two about a half second. Now the gap for the race lead starting to close up a little bit, as it looked like Massey gained about 3/10 on that last lap.
And Massey's just getting even more time into these corners, and the big thing is that Massey is full sending it into these corners and really is staying low enough to carry the momentum and finding that grip on the inside as Massey continues to throw it down on the inside, kind of stuck in the middle, as Spangler is just staying dedicated to the outside.
It'll be now halfway through this race as Spangler way up on the top there again, and a thing that we're noticing is not a whole lot of drivers really being able to hold it right down there against that inside wall like we saw them do in the 358s earlier, and I think a big reason for that, we already knew this from last season, that the late models carry so much more speed into the corner. You don't want to give up a whole lot of speed to run that inside line if you don't have to.
No, you really don't, and the momentum is going to be carried over as Ordo not able to finish out this race. He's just going to park it, and 71 machine did not have a good heat race nor a good consolation race. It's going to carry on. The Spangler into the outside wall. That's going to be hurting him, giving an opening here to Massey.
He's already been into that outside wall. We can see from the rear spoiler all mangled. Massey's rear spoiler looks good, so I think Spangler is losing that downforce right now, and Massey's going to take advantage not only with his loss of downforce but loss of momentum. Couldn't make the pass there through 3 and 4 though.
Yeah, and that's the issue is when you're running down low, you can't carry that momentum. Spangler just on the brink of brushing the wall, but that's where you need to be if you want to get the perfect exit out. That's what the 10 just did.
This could be a very interesting finish. This is going to decide who's going to be rolling off from the, I believe, 9th position in the main event. Will it be Spangler or will it be Massey? How hard will they race each other for that 9th starting position, as it's going to be the final lap as they come off of turn number 2 and we'll head to turn 3. Let's see what Massey's able to do here coming to the final 4 corners.
Coming to the white flag, Spangler doing great in the 10 machine, keeping it high and not really giving any space, and just because of how much the track has evolved into the outside wall, and this is giving Michael Massey a chance, as he's going to have to be running low, just not having the momentum and not able to capitalize on that brushing of the wall by the 10.
Patrick Spangler has one top 5 in his first 2 starts of the season, tied in a 3-way tie for 3rd in points. Wow, he got loose there off of 2 and tried to block the inside line. Or actually, that was 4. but he's able to hang on to it. He'll win the consolation heat and start 9th in the main event over Michael Massey, Sean Kerrigan, Mitch Bombard, and Dave Melson.
Jim Black and also Ordo going to be starting further back in the field as drivers are still crossing the line, but now we find ourselves 3-minute warm-up time here, Seth, and I think the biggest thing is who will find that speed on the outside first, because based on what we saw, the later the run goes on, that inside, yes, it might be stable and saving your back spoiler, but you're just not able to capitalize on the mistakes on the outside.
The one thing that I'm going to be interested about as well is when we start to see more and more drivers migrate to that outside line. One thing that we saw all the time last year was when everybody went up there, the way they throw it into these corners, you ended up having a lot of stacking up. Drivers having to get on the brakes to avoid running the back of somebody, and a lot of chain reaction wrecks took place. I kind of get the feeling, just based on the fact there's only maybe 2 or 3 viable lanes for these drivers, and they all start to come and go away at the same time. We may see quite a bit of that one in tonight's race.
And we didn't really see any DNFs come out officially for the 358s, but I'm expecting at least 1 to 2 DNFs from this race, just because of some of the hard hits that we've been seeing, and also just because of how damaged some of these cars have gotten just in the heat race and in the consolation race. It's going to be interesting to see overall, but Rick Gibson has to be the favorite coming into this race. I don't know if there's anyone that can touch that 38 machine except for Ryan Stillwell, that is trying to get a rebound from the way that 358 race went for himself.
And, we look at our front row here again as well. As mentioned, they're the only 2 drivers, Rick Gibson and Grant Wesley, that have late model wins here in the last 2 seasons of the late model series. Gibson, of course, winning last season, and Grant Wesley sweeping USA International back in season 3. If you look at the 2 drivers coming into tonight's race, Rick Gibson, he's making his first start of the season, missed the first 2 races. Grant Wesley, on the other hand, he's another driver in that 3-way tie for third, 8 points back, and there's no doubt in my mind that if he had run all of the races last season, he would have been up there, I believe, as well in that championship hunt. Well, looks like right now, at least, he is scheduled to run the full season here, and so tonight could be the place to strike for him to get his first W of the season.
Wait, did I hear you right that this is Rick Gibson's first race of the season?
That's right.
Well, keeping up with the way that, the season's been going, the drivers that have won today, won throughout the season, it's been drivers that have only had 1 start of the season. They've gotten 1 win. So we'll see if Rick Gibson continues that pattern, or if we're going to be seeing someone else that is in the highest points of the points battle. Will they finally get their first one of the season?
And we'll have to see here, too, with Rick Gibson here tonight, obviously a favorite to win here in the late models, and he already has a 358 modified win under his belt here this evening. We're only 2 races in. This is the 3rd race of the season. These drivers are going to be running 15 races total this year. Is there enough time, do you think, if Rick Gibson runs the rest of the races, that he's going to be able to get himself points-wise up into that championship battle?
I think it might be a little bit too far out. Just because of the way that really all of these drivers have been running pretty consistent, and with the way that our front 2 of Stillwell as well as Sprague doing so well for themselves, I gotta say, I think it might be a little bit too far unless we see both of the 9 and also of seeing the 017 having struggles here today. I think it might be too far out for the 38 to come back.
Gonna have to wait and see as warm-up is over. These drivers are getting ready to grid for what's gonna be 45 laps of racing under the lights at USA International. Official lineup is going to be as follows. Rick Gibson will be the pole sitter, rather. Grant Wesley will line up second. Ethan Sprague, second in points. He will be third with Brian Hogue in fourth. Adam Huggins in fifth, and Ryan Stillwell, the points leader, will line up in sixth. Steve Robinson, Tim DeSchwart, they'll be row 4. Patrick Spangler, who we saw win the consolation race, will be ninth alongside of Michael Massey. Then Sean Kerrigan and Mitch Bombard in row 6. Top 15, the rest of the field completed by Dave Melson, Jim Black, and Brian Ordo.
Looking at the featured race here tonight, there is a little bit more time added to the end of this for this featured race. So I don't think time is going to be a factor for these drivers here tonight. It's going to be ran under green, hopefully. And if there's yellows that pop up, we should still be good to run all 45 laps.
Yeah, slightly smaller field than what we saw for the 358 modifieds as well, so that could play into the possibility of seeing this race run into a long green flag run, maybe from start to finish. We saw that a couple of times actually last year with the late models and with the street stocks where they went coast to coast under the green flag. So we'll see if that's going to be the case here tonight as we're getting ready to turn them loose here at USA International. Again, going to be the same situation as what we saw with the 358s. Only green flag laps will count in this 45 lap event.
And we will be seeing double file restarts until we get to lap 10, and then we will move to single file restarts for these drivers. Rick Gibson's got to be feeling comfortable and confident, but I think Brian Hogue is another driver to be watching out for. But Ryan Stillwell going to be back in 6th place. Looked quick during the warm-ups. Wonder if this 9 machine has anything for our front 5.
We know that he's going to be very aggressive on restarts. He was in the 358s race in that second place battle at the time. And we'll see if he's going to be aggressive on the restarts here. Stillwell, maybe the points leader, but he's still looking for his first late model win of the season. Going to be starting the outside of row 3 as it's going to be Gibson looking to go back-to-back here tonight, looking for the sweep at USA International, and he'll get us underway.
Rick Gibson going to be on the inside, but they're already starting to stack up 2 rows behind him. As now Rick Gibson going to be drifting up. A Hogue's right there, and the difference between what we were seeing with the 355s and here with the late models, that front nose, it's ramp-like. It's going to be something to watch out for. If they spin another driver out, that front bumper mostly is going to be it.
Yeah, it's going to be more than likely as well, unlike what we saw. Brian Hogue. And, we got hit. That was Mitch Bombard that got him, I believe, in the 8.
Ordo also going to be involved in that one.
Another car, that's the 86 of Jim Black facing the wrong way.
Ordo smashes into the outside wall trying to get himself straight. Also looks like Black might have rear-ended himself into the inside wall. Might be stuck for the 86 machine. No, he's able to get going as our leaders are coming back around on the front stretch. But only 2 laps in. And kind of not surprised that our back half of the field, they're going to be struggling like that just based on what we saw off the heat race and also the consolation race.
Take a look and see what happened here. This was the battle at the time for what would have been 2nd place, maybe 3rd place. And boy, just Brian Hogue just getting way too loose on that inside line and nowhere for Mitch Bombard in the 8 to go. There you see the 71 of Brian Hogue getting the piece of it as well. Not really sure how the 86 got involved. I don't know if he spun out trying to avoid the 14, but it didn't really look like he got hit by anybody.
He got into the outside wall and then decided I'm just going to spin out and hopefully not make the contact, which was a great move until he backed up into the inside wall, which hurt the 86. I think he might have backed into it multiple times. So, you know, sometimes you make some great moves, other times it's going to be hurting you. But early on, Hogue is looking like he'll be having to use a fast repair, as well as Ordo going to be coming in and using a fast repair as well.
Yeah, and this is definitely way too early to be putting yourself in that situation where you're having to take on a fast repair. I mean, we talked about the fact that, you know, the street stocks especially are very durable. We saw that the 358s, they had moments of durability and moments of extreme sensitivity depending on where the contact was made with the race car. But we know for these late model machines that they definitely are very sensitive, especially that rear spoiler and up around the front tires.
Yeah, and you don't want to use a fast repair this early on. It's just going to be hurting you so much moving forward. Now you got to be thinking about, especially for Ordo and for Hogue, that were drivers. I mean, basically for Hogue, who was battling for a top 5 position. Now he's got to find a way to get through traffic and get back up there. And then for Ordo, just a bad spot to be in. It looks like Ordo might be going with a manual repair and not a fast repair here early on.
See if that's going to pay dividends for him, because it all depends on how long he's going to have to stay on pit road to get that manual repair done. Every likelihood he will probably lose at least 1 lap in doing so here. I don't think he'll be able to get out of pit road before we go back green, because the pace truck's hitting pit road right now and Ordo still sits in his pit stall.
Yeah, just bad luck continues on every single race that Ordo has been in here in the late models here at the USA International Speedway. It has not been a good one. Stuck in pit road once again, side-by-side action for the lead. Rick Gibson trying to power on, but it's going to be Grant Wesley on the outside, getting the momentum into the lead.
Let's see if he can clear coming off of turn 4. He'll be able to get back to the throttle sooner than Gibson will. But no, the two of them draw even at the start-finish line. I think maybe, just maybe, it was hard to tell from that camera angle, but I think the nose of the 38 got the 88 at the line.
And this is where those drivers were, what we were seeing for Heat 1, just side-by-side racing that continued on here in the early stages. And then the question of, will we see drivers having issues? Speaking of issues, on the back, Michael Massey and others collected. Looks like Kerrigan involved, and also Jim Black.
3-car incident there is Jim Black trying to get
Massey.
Black trying to get his car refired and leave the scene of the accident. And we'll see what happened with the driver that finished second in our consolation heat.
Massey just got into 10 machine and then just became a pinball from there, and Kerrigan had nowhere to go. And I think Black might have done the similar move that he did last time and just spin out and try to avoid other drivers.
And we saw this happen in the heat races as well. When your car is fishtailing, there's just no way that you are producing maximum straightaway speed. And if there's someone behind you that got off the corner straight and had good run coming onto one of the straightaways, either the front or back, they're going to be into the back of you because there's going to be a huge difference in miles per hour.
The driver coming into the pits for fast repair, that's going to be Bombard, and the 8 machine coming in as Massey and also Kerrigan going to be staying out, which both of those drivers, I think Kerrigan might have some back rear left damage, might be dealing with, also a little bit of spoiler damage. But we'll be keeping our eyes out on how that spoiler is going to be reacting throughout the night and what the damage is like for most of these drivers once we get to those final 10 laps.
Well, Mitch did come down pit road, but he did not do a fast repair. He is still in his pit stall, so going with a manual repair, which is going to lose him some time here. Brian Ordo, we saw him on pit road earlier. He came back out onto the racetrack. He is 1 lap down, and I do believe he's going to get the free pass under this caution. So that caution really saved the driver of the 71.
Oh boy. Now we wait and see, as I believe the 8 machine was able to get it out of pit road and should be 1 lap down.
And it looks like Ordo actually did not get the lucky dog here. He is 1 lap down still, so
we'll follow up on that. Get out in time.
So it'll be 14 of the 15 cars on the lead lap when we go back green. All 15 still running. Gibson was edged ahead of Grant Wesley when that caution came out, so we'll lead them back to green. So far, we've only worked 4 laps under the green flag, and Gibson easily going to clear Grant Wesley before they get to turn 1.
Will Wesley get the momentum out of the corner? That's where he's been finding the speed, or will he have to finally duck it down low? It's going to be Huggins that is going to be following suit behind. Great run for the 16 machine, and also Steve Robbins in 4th place. Now he's going to be battled here by the 017, and that battle for 4th place really hot and heavy at the moment.
Yeah, Steve Robbins did not have a good 3 and 4. That stacked him up with himself, Sprague, Ryan Stillwell, Tim DeSchwart in the mix there as well. Almost 4 wide as they're now 3 wide going down the straightaway and heading for turn 3.
Oh boy, the 9's going to be moving up, and that's going to be stacking the drivers on the high side. They're going to be following back, but also the pass from the lead has been made. Grant Wesley has made the pass. Rick Gibson stuck in 2nd place and has had fallen up to the high side following everyone else.
Grant Wesley so far 2 races, 2
Caution
finishes
back.
inside the top 10, and that's going to be
Brian Hogue, the 10, the 038, and others all involved in this thing.
And let's not forget Brian Hogue, we know, already used a fast repair back on lap 2.
Looks like Spangler just coming in with a lot of speed, and it was one of those drivers all got stacked up. Hogue doesn't look like he's got too much damage, and then he gets plowed multiple times on the front left. That continues on.
We talked about, remember we said that Steve Robbins, that he had a bad corner, it stacked everybody up. That's what happened again in that corner, stacking everyone up, and that led to the contact eventually between Spangler and Hogue.
Yeah, and Spangler's rear spoiler is just destroyed. That thing is riddled with so much dents involved that it is no longer usable at this point. We'll see though, the 10 is still out there on track. Just gonna have to nurse this thing around until he feels like it is time to pit and use that fast repair.
Michael Massey, Sean Kerrigan, and Dave Melson were the cars that came flying in. Also see the 8 of Mitch Bombard is facing down the wrong way. I wonder if he might have gotten into the back potentially of Jim Black, as those two were trying to slow down for the incident.
Meters are stacking up. We're still within the within 10 laps, so the driver should be still staying with. Nope, the admins have actually called it. We're going single file restarts from here on out for this race. And you know, we talked about how their cautions were probably going to be ramping up just because of how much longer and bigger these cars are compared to the 358s, and it is certainly carried over from what we thought it was going to be like.
Well, last week, Brian Ordo jumped from 16th to 12th in points, but here tonight he'll probably lose a couple of spots as he is going to be the first retiree from tonight's event, finishing in the 15th position. Mitch Bombard looks like he was on pit road under this caution. He's just now coming off of pit road. I think he's still going to be on the lead lap, though. So 14 cars still on the lead lap. And it looks like that 14 of Brian Hogue did not come to pit road despite the damage sustained, and kind of his hand is forced. He can't come down pit road because he's already got that fast repair already used.
Yep, gotta be staying out there. Deal with what you got. And, you know, that's what stings is having to use fast repair in the first 10 laps is you're most likely going to be stuck where carnage is still going to be happening. As now the green flag is out, Grant Wesley going to be taking off, but it's that battle for second place that you got to keep your eye out on for. It might be the battle for third place as here comes Stillwell trying to get by the 16 machine.
Yeah, he got a little loose on the start there, did Stillwell, but able to get a nice bike through 1 and 2 on the back bumper of Adam Huggins for that third position. Then behind them, you've got the 49 of Tim DeSchwart right down there on the bottom. He's trying to pick up a spot against Steve Robbins. That's for 6.
Stillwell's finally gotten underneath the 16, and the 16 into the outside wall. Gonna be just having to wall ride all the way through, and we'll see if he comes back down, and he'll hold on for fourth place for the moment. But here comes the rest of the field trying to get by.
And that's going to give damage to that 16 machine around that rear spoiler area, so we'll see if his struggles of handling will continue on as Boy DeSchwart really doggedly trying to get that inside line going. Just about everybody's running that upper groove right against the outside wall. And Steve Robbins going to get the wall that time going into turn 1.
Yeah, Robbins can just continue to get closer and closer to that outside wall. Luckily, the spoiler still looks decent enough to be working with. But Tim DeSchwart, the issue with him going so far low is he's got to go so low that the front bumper almost has to grace the inside wall. And that is a dangerous place to be putting your machine here, but certainly not afraid to do it. Robin gets up into the wall again after the 49 brushing the wall in front of him.
Yeah, Ethan Sprague up into the wall there. We also had Adam Huggins nearly loop it around as he was facing 90 degrees the wrong way. And look at this now. Things getting wadded up as DeSchwart down the bottom, Robin down the bottom. They're trying to make passes on Huggins and Sprague.
Yeah, it looks like Huggins kind of just stalling out. You're putting a little bit too much wheel into it. And Sprague once again brushing the wall in. Sprague is just not having the best time on the outside. Oh, it looks like he needs to just rip down maybe a half a groove down to avoid the outside wall. It's just not been the run that he has been needing. But right now, I mean, Tim DeSchwart, great tries on his part, but he's about to lose those positions that he just gained on the inside.
And here's the issue I'm seeing if you're that 38 of Rick Gibson. I mean, we've seen drivers trying to use the inside line. They're not able to get the momentum from the center of the corner off. Most drivers are running that outside line, and a lot of them as well are running the line that's right up against the outside wall. If there's a high line racetrack, normally we see that high line migrate higher and higher to the outside wall. If they keep running the lines they're running, there is going to be no line with moisture at the end of this race for somebody to be able to make a pass eventually for the win.
That's the thing that it comes down to with these dirt tracks is once you lose all the moisture, it's all about how do you survive and find that speed. Most of the time when all the moisture is gone, you usually start ducking it back down to the inside, taking it a little bit slower and understanding that you're going to have to slow down your speed to try to save yourself some time. But Rick Gibson found the speed on the inside, got close to the grass, and now right on the bumper of our leader of Grant Wesley. And I think he's found that speed that we were talking about that you need to search for, because here comes Rick Gibson side by side for our leader.
Running the same line we saw him run early on in the 358 Modifieds race with that left front right down on that grass, just jutting out from the inside wall, and he's getting alongside of Grant Wesley. He just can't quite get side by side completely with him on the straightaway. Otherwise, I think he'd have an advantage going into corner entry.
Yeah, now it's kind of the wait and know. You know you got the speed, but now you got to wait for the 88 to make the mistake off the exit of the corner, and it hasn't happened yet. But if he brushes the wall like that again, it certainly is going to give an opening, as they're still side by side down the backstretch.
Grant Wesley on the top side. Rick Gibson on the inside. Inside line gets the advantage into the corner, as he did brush the inside wall there with the left front. And you talked about that, Sam. There's a razor's edge that you got to tiptoe there in order to get the perfect entry and exit through those corners without tearing up your equipment.
Yeah, I mean, that's 3 and 4. That's the risk you have to go with. And now we're going to see a wreck in the back, and it's going to be some of our front runners. It's going to be Steve Robbins, contact, also with Michael Massey, who's going to be coming through, making some contact there with the 073.
Steve Robbins has had his hands full here tonight. A lot of times we've seen him nearly lose the machine and have to back off to compensate, and looks like the 4th caution of the night's going to be coming out, maybe potentially for the same kind of situation we've seen him in a couple of times tonight.
The 017 also involved in this one. It looks like Huggins almost got collected, but just missed was Robbins. Just dug it a little bit too hard and was not able to get that machine sideways and around the corner, and it just went completely straight and into the outside wall was 073, as you'll see here on the replay.
Yeah, take a look at another angle of it, and you pinpointed it. That car went straight. I mean, that is very strange to see, especially with the way that these late models are built. I mean, usually you don't have to put a whole lot of effort into it to have these cars go sliding into the corner. So what could there have been that led to that fact that that car just did not turn on corner entry?
Possible being on the throttle for too long. Also could have been just not putting enough wheel and really flicking the machine into these corners. There's a lot of different factors that came into this thing, but for Steve Robbins, I mean, that's got to be frustrating, but I think also just putting himself in a difficult scenario, having to try to run that middle lane where it's been kind of hard to get your machine turning in some points, or just overturning. Like we said, there's a lot of spaces here in these dirt races where it's just like a limbo and a scale of, is this going to be hurting me, or is it going to be putting me in a more difficult spot? As Black going to be pulling it into the pits a little bit later than everyone else, but now we're starting to see most of the back half of the field going to be already using a fast repair, and if they've already used one, slightly damaged compared to what the rest of the field.
Michael Massey, Steve Robbins, and Patrick Spangler all used a fast repair here under this caution. Looks like Jim Black, he's coming down pit road right now. We'll wait and see what the reason for that is, if it's going to be for a potential fast repair, if it's just to maybe, well, it looks like he may have just passed through pit road. I don't think he actually stopped in his pit stall. Mitch Bombard in the 8 back down pit road, getting some more repairs done to his machine, but so far the 14 remaining cars still on the lead lap, as Grant Wesley about to get us back underway. These pace laps don't take long.
They really don't. Do want to give a quick note. Drivers from about 3rd back to 6th place, they all have extreme rear right spoiler damage. They got something they're going to have to deal with for the rest of the race unless they come in and get that repaired.
Rick Gibson got himself a good restart there. He's back to the inside of Grant Wesley, resuming what he was doing prior to that caution coming out. Actually got alongside of Grant that time. That was his best run off the corner yet.
Almost a little bit of contact from our front too, and also you got to be thinking for Tim DeShort. That 49 machine has certainly been trying to work his way forward, able to get by Huggin. As Huggin drops back, it's now going to be our front 2 still side by side. Rick Gibson, he's trying his best, not able to carry that momentum, but certainly trying. And the longer the run goes on, I think he found that sweet spot of the inside, but it might be evolving slowly to the high side, taking the advantage now.
Last season, Rick Gibson went to victory lane twice, including here at USA International. Grant Wesley, on the other hand, went to victory lane 5 times, including 3 wins in a row during the midway portion of the season. He's yet to go to victory lane this year, trying to not only win, but take the points lead, as he was only 8 points back coming into tonight.
You have the leaders that are battling strong. Also the battle for 5th place. That is hot and heavy with 3 drivers all on top of one another. Got the 16, the 017, the 14, all not really giving anyone any space.
Behind the battle for the lead, looming is the points leader, Ryan Stillwell. Stillwell currently running ahead of most of his competition, with the exception of that 88 of Grant Wesley, who's still in a fight there with Gibson for the race lead, and I think that Wesley may have gone up and brushed the wall with the right rear of his machine.
Grant Wesley, I think he might be similar into a must-win scenario, but we're having an issue with the driver in the back half of the field. 038 had to pull it into the pit road. Heavy damage. Going to be trying to get some pit road action done and might have to use a fast repair.
No caution yet, though, as Dave Melson was able to bring it down safely to pit road, out of the way of the leaders. And Gibson, again, nice exit there. He's actually got half a car length advantage going into 3. This might be the pass.
It just seems like it's a seesaw effect of the inside and the outside of where is the speed's going to come from. Caution to the back, though. Jim Black spinning it around, it looks like, as he has to teleport it back to pit lane after spinning it around in corner number 1.
And that may be one of the hardest impacts we've ever seen a late model take, because the whole hood is gone on that 86 machine. We'll see what happened to cause such detrimental damage on that car.
You know, it's crazy is you would think that you would be a harder impact that would rip off the front of this machine, but it more was the back end and then hitting the front end again, and it wasn't the hardest lick that we've seen all night, but certainly hard enough to ruin the day. Jim Black parking it for the day.
Tough break there for Jim Black as his night is over. It looks like, as we saw Dave Melson come to pit road, he has gone to the garage area as well. And you know, we touched on this when we were talking during the interview about the fact that we had pretty much everybody still in the running in the modifieds race earlier on tonight, even though a few of them did finish a lap down. But 15 cars started this race. We're now into the halfway portion, and 3 drivers have already DNF'd.
Yeah, just showing how fragile these machines really are at times. If you're not able to conserve how much damage you are ensuing on these vehicles, it's going to be hurting you for the long run. And also, the drivers that are DNFing, a lot of them already had used their fast repair, so it felt like, hey, I don't have anything left. I'm just going to be a detriment on the track. I'm just going to park it for the day.
How frustrating must these cautions be for Rick Gibson? Because just it seems when he's mounting a charge and starting to get an advantage, then the caution comes out and it kind of takes away the rhythm that these drivers have to be in at these dirt tracks.
It takes away the rhythm, as well as, yes, the laps are not counting officially, but it certainly is counting on the track. A little bit more wear is being put down. So once you go green, you've got to research on where that speed is, because you might have been right on the brink of finding the fastest point on the lower end of the track. But now with all these pace laps that are going down, it could be evolving to now the middle. The outside might be faster. So it's going to be a question mark all race long, as Grant Wesley about to bring us green here as we're getting ready to start of lap 25.
Getting close to 20 laps to go here tonight, working our 5th caution of the evening here for the late models. Grant Wesley gets us back underway, and that time Gibson did not get a good jump. He's actually going to be under fire for second place by both Stillwell and Tim DeSchwart.
3 wide for second place, but Rick Gibson gets the momentum on the outside. But here comes DeSchwart. He's on the inside of Stillwell, but Stillwell still on the outside. He can follow suit as Gibson's getting close to that outside wall. You got to be close to not hitting it this time, as all 3 drivers on the outside get going, and DeSchwart's going to have to follow suit.
Tim DeSchwart with that white paint scheme. It's so easy to tell how much dirt these cars actually accumulate on the front, just based on how dirty the front end of that white car really is. He's currently in 4th, still well ahead of him in 3rd. Gibson was able to shake those 2. He's trying to close the gap back up between himself and Grant Wesley and resume what's been a great battle for the lead in the last 2 runs.
I'm watching the drivers in the middle of the back, and that's going to be Ethan Sprague, who has just been struggling to stay off of the outside wall. It just gets worse and worse every lap. He's got to figure out how to get away from it, even though that spoiler is so damaged.
Adam Huggins now looking to the inside of Brian Hogue. That's to crack the top 5. Hogue's going to hold the position for the moment. And back in that area you were talking about with Sprague, you find Steve Robbins as well as Patrick Spangler. None of these 3 look like their car is handling the way they want it to.
No, and once again, I mean, that 017 just wanting to find more speed, but certainly is not having the best entry in the apex speed, found right into the wall and then trying to carry that speed off. It is hurting overall, and now running back in 8th place when this driver was running around 4th place earlier on in the race.
Got to give credit to Brian Hogan, that 14 machine. Got involved in a wreck all the way back on lap 2. Had to utilize his faster pair as early as that. Has been able to survive up to this point and back up into the top 5. A great run for him, a driver that came into this race 8th in points, 12 points back.
Well, Rick Gibson, we talked about how you might have to search for grip and you might have to move so high almost into the wall. Has to be where the speed is. For front 2, they are mimicking and copying one another, as it's just a mirror image of what we're seeing each lap. They're just following, trying to, I mean, it's the mind games, the chess match of where the speed is, and both of them trying to figure it out at the same time.
Well, see, and the interesting thing about this, too, is when we go back to the race that we had earlier on tonight with the 358 Modifieds, we were surprised at the fact that the then race leader gave up the top side to Rick Gibson when we were seeing it was working so well for him. Grant Wesley right now, he's trying to figure out where that 38 is running the identical place so that way Gibson can't get a run on it, but Gibson back down to the inside line. Wesley this time moves back to the top.
Yeah, I mean, it's those mind games of figuring out where you want to place yourself, and I think right now Gibson was hoping to keep himself close to that really spoiler and just trying to get close enough, but I think he's done it to the inside, the slide job move, and he found the speed on the inside through 1 and 2, and now it's carrying that speed on the high side through 3 and 4. Rick Gibson, he's found it once again. He did it in the 358s. Has he done it again in the late models where the speed is?
Now, Grant Wesley, the only time we've really seen him run the inside line was when he was trying to defend against Rick Gibson. We'll see what he's able to do here now that he has to try and pass Gibson back for the lead. Edges ahead for a moment there coming off the corner, but Gibson's going to have the preferred lane again coming through 3 and 4.
And now Wesley's going to be drifting up high. Crossover move going to be hit here by Rick Gibson, who's going to be in a more preferred lane here through 1 and 2. And it's because of the bumps that we're seeing. The bumps are hurting the drivers that are on the outside, but on the inside, you can carry that momentum once you hit that bump on the entry of turn 1.
All right, so we're seeing Rick Gibson again make the
Caution
move. Caution. Ethan Sprague, the struggles continue as I think he may have actually spun it onto pit road.
He's going to get a huge shove. I think he was trying to already get into pit lane, but gets spun around by Michael Massey. And now, like we saw once we swapped the camera in pit road, trying to get that damage repair and a quick fast repair, and hoping that this will fix the woes that Sprague's been having. Almost up into Hogue. Be careful there between those drivers exiting that pit road.
Saw the contact between himself and Sean Kerrigan, and then Michael Massey, and boy, there's not that big of an opening there between the concrete barriers to get onto pit road. So in the case of Ethan Sprague there, he's very lucky that he was able to get back into the throttle and shoot the gap into that pit road entry area.
I mean, the way that it looks, I think that was his goal from the beginning of entering that corner. It might have been just get to pit road. It was the contact that was made that was not part of the plan, as those drivers wait and see who else is going to be taking some damage repair here. It looks like the 16 and the 8 both coming in here during pit road, trying to get their rear spoiler fixed and ready to go. As that's huge for the 16. Huggins needed this damage repair. That rear wing was absolutely riddled with damage, and now going to be back in 11th place. Hopefully with this damage repair can try to make some moves forward. There's still a lot of drivers with the damage that is on that rear wing.
And you could touch on this. I'm not exactly familiar with how the late models are built, but it looked like when we saw that machine of Sprague come down pit road, it was almost as if he was having a really tough time getting his car to turn to the left, like something had happened with the contact maybe between himself and Massey with maybe the right side suspension, where it was wanting to actually pull him to the right.
Yeah, I believe it was that contact with Massey that might have wrecked with the toe there with the car, and so not able to turn left like you saw. But these cars easily want to turn left naturally, and so if you've really messed up the toe, you saw it there. Can't really turn left, and issues to be seen. But our leader Grant Wesley has slight right side wing damage, as well as Rick Gibson. And then you go back to Stillwell, huge right side damage for the 9 machine, as well for DeSwart. So they're going to have to keep their eyes open for that. A little bit of damage for Hogue, and a lot of damage there back for Steve Robbins, who's already used the fast repair. So kind of just stuck with what they have as the Pace truck pulls off. Green flag in the air.
Yeah, a lot of drivers, as we said, when they come to the racetracks with these late models, the strategy is preserve that rear spoiler. I don't think there's a single driver in the field tonight that hasn't used up their spoiler in some way, shape, or form. Getting up into the wall as Wesley drives away. Gibson's going to clear into second place. Now sets his sights back on the 88. Battle's going to be for the third spot. Stillwell actually down on the inside line. That's territory we really haven't seen him run all night long in both this and the 358 race.
Stillwell has to go down there. I mean, that's the only place you can try to find speed. And Rick Gibson's going to go defending the inside lane. But as you said, I mean, Grant Wesley already out to over a half a second lead. Just running the outside, should be staying there, and it's working out. Pulling away another 10th that time by through the corner.
Battle looks like it's going to maybe be brewing for that fifth position rather. Steve Robbins, he has had his hands full tonight, still somehow in the top 5 and 5th, and he's got Brian Hogue hunting him down. Ahead of them, Stillwell had a rear deck lid completely full of Tim DeSchwart, and it continues through 3 and 4.
Yeah, looking at some of the drivers that came into the pits this last time by Greg in the 017 back in 10th place. Gonna be trying to make a pass on the 15, not able to, but up front, battle for third place, is that battle that is really heating up. As DeSchwart going to be running extremely high, trying to carry the momentum and getting by the 9 machine if possible, and has done it. As the 9 is Stillwell, he's out of shape out of 4, and that's going to be giving away that position. But will it stick through 1 and 2?
Big opportunity here if DeSchwart can make that pass on Stillwell for Grant Wesley to try and close out the deal here tonight. Maybe take the points lead heading into next week as, Stillwell running really low there through 3 and 4. Almost got his left front into the inside wall, and now he's got Steve Robin and Brian Hogue. They're going to jump to the outside of him. I'm almost wondering if this loss of position that we're seeing could be due to all that damage you talked about that Stillwell had on that spoiler early on.
Yeah, and the damage was just piling up with the more of the times the drivers were running on the high side. They kept on brushing the outside wall, adding more damage, and just making it way worse than it really was. Grant Wesley believed he had issues. He's now ran into the pit wall, and now into pit road. Now Rick Gibson leading this race.
Wow, what in the world happened to the 88 machine who looked like he had this race in hand? He was a full second and a half ahead of Rick Gibson at the time, and just like that, he is on pit road and he is out of this race. Caution! We got a lot of cars.
Everyone in the back half of the field just caught up in this thing, and I don't know what happened to Grant Wesley. He was running well and then just slowed down completely on his pace. He didn't rush the inside wall. He just parked it for the day. That was one of the most oddest things I have seen, as our leader just parks it and is done, giving Rick Gibson the lead as we're coming to the end of this race.
Here it was. Grant Wesley just slows it down, brings it into the pit road entry. No caution came out for that. What it came out for was right here. The 9 of Ryan Stillwell. He was on pit road, and it actually looks like he starts slowing down as well. And then he parks it. Does Stillwell? What is going on?
Possibly something. It's just confusing on what the heck is going on with these. I think something might have broke for Stillwell.
And we had another car that actually came to a stop as well on the racetrack. The 017 of Ethan Spraker we're about to show here. I mean, this is the strangest thing I think I've ever seen.
Was the race only for lap 40 possibly? I mean, I don't know what is going on with what it happened, because we still have 5 laps to go, and we go green. It's going to be 4 laps to go. Odd to see. Grant Wesley has parked it, officially DNF'd for the 88 machine. Stillwell going to be in trying to get manually repaired. Had a fast repair still for the 9 machine, and then also the 017 had to go into the pits getting damage repair for himself. We're now down to less than 10 drivers in the field that are running right now, and this is just an odd way for this race to finish out. But Rick Gibson might become a 2-time winner here tonight. Already won with the 358s. Can he get it done here in the Pro Light models? We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, that was the race leader and 4th place that came and stopped. One came to pit road, the other stopped in the back straightaway. I think the caution came out for Stillwell stopping on the back straightaway. We saw that Sprague stopped down near the pit road exit entering turn 1. And we're getting ready for what's going to be now a 4-lap shootout, and Gibson has just been handed the race lead for this finish.
The driver now that is in go mode, it's got to be the 073 of Steve Robin. If he can somehow find his way up front, win this race, could become our new points leader, and honestly, a complete shakeup of what the points were looking like when we started tonight.
Tim DeSchwart, he's been able to keep in touch there with Rick Gibson. He's looking to go to victory lane. Again, every single driver in the field, as Bombard gets out of shape back there, but no caution. Every single driver in the field looking for their first win of Season 5, and Robbins getting a great run on that top side, going to get alongside DeSchwart for second. What kind of a run does he get on the front straightaway? He's going to take the race lead.
What happened to Rick Gibson? He almost had a very similar incident of just losing speed like we saw with the 9 and the 88. Rick Gibson has got no momentum on the straightaway. He is losing time as here comes the 14 on the outside.
This is crazy. Rick Gibson all of a sudden appears to be off the pace. We've had several of our race leaders park it with 5 laps to go, and Robbins, who was 5th about 5 laps ago, he is now your race leader with 1.5 laps remaining. Now the white flag in the air.
Adam Huggins is going to be parking it, but it's going to be Steve Robbins up front. He really was a driver that should not have been up front winning this thing, but here comes Rick Gibson, full centers 1 and 2, coming down the backstretch.
And he's going to do it again in 3 and 4 because he's close enough. Let's see which lanes they take. Robbins goes low. Gibson looks to go lower. He's going to get alongside coming off of 4. Will they make contact? No, Gibson gets loose. Steve Robbins is going to win here tonight at USA.
Tim DeSchwart almost lost third to Hogue, but it's Steve Robbins who was running in 5th place almost all race long with heavy wing damage. Somehow gets it done here at the end when our leaders all just backed out of the race.
We have to go back a long time for me to be sitting here at the end of a race, scratching my head, trying to process what just happened in the final 10 laps. But the end result is Steve Robbins is going to get his first win of the season. A driver that came into this race 6th in points, 9 points back, could very well be heading into Knoxville next week as the new points leader.
Steve Robbins, before this race started, was 9 points back. This is just baffling to see. I mean, what the heck just happened?
I don't know.
I think we were still trying to process it when they came across the line. We still are now. Grant Wesley looked like the most dominant car, was going to win this race. We stayed green. Yellow flag comes out with a 4-lap shootout. And Steve Robbins, who wasn't even a factor in our mind, comes out to win this thing.
Without a doubt, if you look between himself and Ethan Sprague, they were the two that looked like they were struggling the most in this race. And Steve Robbins, as you mentioned, that back end was all mangled up. And he's still able to pick up the victory here tonight. Gibson, who was trying to go for the weekend sweep, he gets second. DeSchwart's going to finish in third. And how about Brian Hogue and Patrick Spangler? Hogue had to use a faster pair back on lap 2. Spangler used a faster pair just a little bit before halfway. They're going to squeak out top 5 finishes.
I mean, you got Stillwell, Grant Wesley, Sprague, Hogue. They all just parked it when they were all top 5 cars almost all race long. And now they're finishing 9th back to a 12th place. Like this is what a shakeup for our top 10 at that point, and extremely our top 5, completely different from what we were seeing most of the race.
Well, you know, 2 points that were made. Number one, you mentioned how sensitive these cars are, and the point that I made was it looked like every single one of these drivers had gotten up into that outside wall at some point during this race. With the fact we had so many drivers pulling it off the racetrack there at that point, and the issue we saw Rick Gibson have on that final restart, is it possible that something in the suspension of every single one of those cars might have been affected with them getting up into the wall as many times as they did?
Possibly one hit gave them what we call a meatball in iRacing, which is a required repair that you have to do. It's a black flag. If you don't repair your car, you get DQ'd from the race. Possibly that was something that happened to these drivers. Too many incident points could have been another factor for these drivers to be parking it for the day. Could have been a mechanical error on their side with a computer or wheel. I mean, there's so many factors that could have been in this race for what happened here at the end, but still, Steve Robbins came in clutch with 4-lap shootout, ran the outside lane, had the momentum, and made Rick Gibson look like he was standing still with the pass that he made.
Well, we've got questions. Hopefully the drivers have answers. Let's see if we can get an interview with our top 3 finishers, and let's kick things off with Tim DeSchwart.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Tim, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yeah, I hear you.
Man, okay, the first thing that we've got to ask here, because we are rather perplexed with what happened in those final 10 laps. We saw you running in the 5th, 6th position. Next thing we know, you're up there in 3rd. Couple of guys that you were racing around, Grant West, the 88, Ryan Stillwell in the 9, they pull off the racetrack and DNF from this event. So what was going on there?
The setup that we used was the default iRacing setup, and I think it's just because this is the biggest track on the circuit. We did 45 laps. About 10 to go, people start talking about fuel issues. So other people, I guess, gambled and didn't make it, and I was trying to save fuel as much as I could those last 10 laps.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense why we saw both those drivers pull it into pit road then. But Tim, during the race, we saw you sticking to the inside most of this race. What were you finding on the inside compared to the rest of the field that decided we're just going to run the outside lane?
If you could hit that bottom just right, especially in 1 and 2, you could gain on the cars running the top on the outside there. So I used it a lot in the beginning, and I kind of went away from it about halfway through the race because I didn't want it to completely wear out before the end. And then when the fuel issues came in, I just rolled around the bottom real slow just to try to save as much as I could.
Tim, you know, this season has gotten off to a bit of a bumpy start for you. You ended up finishing 13th and 7th so far this season. Tonight, to be able to get back up there into the podium where we're used to seeing you finish week after week, how good does that feel, and does that kind of turn your season around, do you think, in terms of momentum?
I sure hope so. It's always good to finish in the podium with these guys. There's a lot of good, clean racers here. Bad luck first couple weeks. Just we do random heats, and I've been starting in the back of my heats. It seems like every race, and it's just hard to get up through the pack in 8 laps. So it does feel good to be on the podium again. I have to be honest.
Well, Tim, congratulations. 3rd place run here tonight at USA. We're going to give you the opportunity now for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody here at RTG. They put on a great league. We have a lot of fun here on Friday nights. To my teammate, Mike Massey, it's a lot of fun racing with him too. All these guys do a great job. We're just having a lot of fun out here, and we appreciate you guys too.
As Tim DeSchwart, he'll finish 3rd place here tonight. Undoubtedly, this run will put him up inside the top 5 in points heading into Knoxville next week. Congrats, Tim.
Thanks, guys.
User was moved out of
Let's
your
get
channel.
our 2nd place finisher now, Rick Gibson.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Rick, it's Sam and Seth up here again in the FRN studios. You got us?
I got you guys.
Man, you were so close to pulling off the weekend sweep. We saw some great battling between yourself and the 88 for the top position, some crossovers back and forth. But then in those final 10 laps, we saw the 88 with what we were hearing could have been some fuel problems. He ended up finishing out of the race. And then we saw you a little bit of a sluggish start there on that final restart. Were you having some fuel problems as well?
Yep, I think it was probably around the last 10 laps or so, or whatever that last caution was. Somebody came over the radio and said their spotter just gave them the 5 to go to pull in. So pulled up the keyboard and noticed I was running low, so I was just trying to finish and, I don't know, conserve as much as I can.
Yeah, Rick, I mean, since fuel mileage kind of came in there at the end, how much fuel did you have left when you crossed the line? Was there any possible way you could have been forcing it there at the end?
I had 0.1 when I crossed. So it was really hard to to watch Steve just blow by me. I mean, hats off to him. He ran a great race. So, I mean, he did what he needed to do. So it was kind of frustrating, but, you know, it's all part of it.
Well, congratulations, Rick, nonetheless, on great performances here tonight. The win in the 358s, a 2nd place here tonight in the late models as well. Great to see you be able to finish well in both races in your return to the series here in Season 5. We're going to give the opportunity one more time to be able to do some more shout-outs and thank yous.
Yeah, I guess off the bat, everybody at RTG, Terry, Grant, Brian, and even running with, Ryan and Grant tonight, both really super clean drivers, and Grant's always one to watch out for. So, I mean, even being able to run with him side by side and knowing we're not going to have any problems was really fun. So it's always great running with him. And yeah, all the guys back at Hari Sports, Gary Peck, Ronald Piles, and yeah, and thank you guys again for putting on a great broadcast like you guys always do.
Well, that is Rick Gibson, second place here tonight in the late models after following up his win in the 358s. Congratulations, Rick, and we hope to be able to talk to you in the future.
Yeah, I hope so. Thanks, guys.
And let's now go down to victory
User was
lane
moved out
and
of your
talk with the
channel.
driver that is standing by. That is Steve Robbins.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Steve, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
I'm here, guys.
Man, I mean, the one thing we documented first half of this race, it was really looking like you were struggling with your machine, but then the second half comes around and the stars align. Next thing we know, you're coming across to take the checkered flag. A lot of drivers were having issues with fuel. Were you one of those guys that had that in the back of your mind and kept that for some possible strategy late?
I had no clue. I just went out there and ran my race. I had issues with my car. It was loose. It was tight. It pushed. That's when I got into the wall and had to fix it. I just got lucky. I mean, my terrible driving with these cars paid off to give me the win.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, first half, I mean, like we said, you just seemed like you were struggling there, and it seemed like you were doing decently well, but then you would follow where Evan was, and it kept on putting you where the wall was. Was just following the driver in front of you one of the biggest issues, or was it just ill handling overall?
It was a little of both. I was following him for a while, and they would hit the wall, and then I would hit the wall because I'd follow him. I couldn't see my marks because he was in the way. And then I tried other lines, and I couldn't get the car to stick. It was slick through the middle, and it was tight on top, and I just had issues all night long.
Well, Steve, congratulations on your victory here tonight. We documented that coming into this race, you're in a two-way tie for sixth place, was only 9 points back, so very well could be taking the points lead into Knoxville next week. Congratulations. We're going to give you the opportunity now for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Oh, I want to thank all the guys at RTG. Great group of guys to run with. Grant, let's see, Ryan, Tim, all those guys that were running up front. This win is actually thanks to them running so hard and running out of fuel, because I think my best spot finish maybe top 10. Not even close to a win.
Well, he gets a win here tonight. Steve Robbins celebrating in victory lane here this evening at USA International. Congratulations, Steve. Go and enjoy it.
Thank you.
User was moved out of your channel.
Well, we ended up having an interesting race with the 358s, no doubt. It definitely looked like it was going to come down between the 1 and the 38, and of course Gibson prevailing in that one. But here tonight, Sam, again, with these late models, still kind of perplexed. We've gotten the explanation, but based on the fact we didn't have that information prior, it still kind of leaves you with a what just happened kind of feeling.
I mean, now that we got the information that it was the default set that they were working on and how many cautions we were having in the pace laps they were doing, it makes a lot more sense why they ran out of fuel. But yeah, no, certainly we were so baffled by it. I mean, kind of the bad luck that Robbins was having, as well as some of the other drivers, it gave them that opportunity to really force the issue, while all the fast drivers up front had to back it down, or like we saw, a lot of the front runners running out of fuel and not able to finish out this race.
Crazy one here tonight at USA International, as these drivers in both the 358s and the late models will be heading into Knoxville next week, their respective fourth race of the season. But boy, what a couple of races to kind of lead up into that one. It's been a great one here tonight at USA under the lights in Lakeland, Florida. We thank you all for joining us, and Sam, appreciate you joining me here for these two wild events.
Yeah, it certainly was a pleasure to be up in the booth with you, Seth, and what a wild one this was here tonight. Great racing on both ends, but a first time for me seeing a fuel strategy run here during dirt racing.
Absolutely. First time for me as well. Hope you guys enjoyed our coverage here tonight. For Samuel Dyer, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy what's left of your Friday evening as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.